Death Stranding is one of my favorite games. Aside from being the first Strand-type game, like all the jokes and memes online will tell you, it genuinely is an experience unlike anything else on the market. The title's director, Hideo Kojima, stated that Death Stranding was created as a completely new type of game, and while it might have been received by some as a pretentious, boring waste of time, I think he was right. This was a new type of game. Death Stranding manages to blend different genres and mediums for its bizarre storytelling and intricate gameplay to create a wholly unique experience for your playthrough, even potentially creating something different for everyone that tries it. I think what sticks to me most though is how clearly Death Stranding is a personal story for Hideo Kojima, again the creator and director of the game. Death Stranding seems to have been a very personal project for Kojima, and for good reason. In 2015, Kojima was ousted from Konami, the company he previously worked for nearly 20 years crafting the Metal Gear franchise, amongst other work like Zone of the Enders and Police Knots. The story surrounding this departure is messy, and I think we still don't have all the facts, but I don't really care to get into studio and publisher drama. But the breakup is an important note to lead Kojima to establishing his own studio, Kojima Productions, previously a subsidiary of Konami, now his own independent development team. Kojima Productions had something to prove. Kojima himself had created a staple and icon for the industry, and now he had to follow that up with something new and fresh for his personal venture. And for that, it seems like he looked inside to write a story and develop a game that hadn't been seen before, that Strand-type game. The Strand in the game refers to a lot of things: the progression of the narrative in our protagonist Sam's main goal, the use of online functionality to link players in asynchronous cooperation, and of course, very literal strands used throughout gameplay and talked about in the story. Through interviews and articles online, Kojima was slowly revealing what the core of the game would be and how it could differentiate itself in the market. When the game was revealed in 2016, Kojima also sent out a series of messages to talk about the major themes of the game and give thanks to the support he's had while conceptualizing the idea, two of which stand out to me the most and what I think set up Death Stranding to be that unique game and new genre. Kobo Abe wrote a novella called Nawa, which talks about the first inventions of the human race: the stick and the rope. The stick, which helped man keep distance from threats, and the rope that helped us capture and bind things important to us. Death Stranding is a different type of game. You can call it a walking simulator, a typical third-person shooter, you can ironically brand it a Strand-type game, or whatever else, but you cannot deny that it's unique. From Penguin Adventure to Metal Gear, and now Death Stranding, Kojima and his games have always strived to deliver a title that was deeper than its contemporaries, and asked you to look inward to get more out of the experience. They are games that give the player inescapable odds against you, but ask you to face the future with hope, much like Kojima himself. Death Stranding was created to be something different, and while it might not appeal to everyone, and can definitely feel a little lost in its own enigma, Death Stranding remains to be one of my favorite games. While Death Stranding is a lot of walking, a lot of shooting, a lot of talking, and a lot of boxes, it's also a deep and complicated story about hope for the future despite a post-apocalyptic setting in a fractured American society with nightmarish creatures everywhere. The narrative throughout the game focuses on that big picture, the idea to reconnect America after a catastrophe that's fractured the continent physically, mentally, and spiritually. But it also takes its time to give us more personal stories about some major players helping Sam connect the country. The narrative through the game is long, very long, as you can probably tell by the length of this video, all within a deeply intricate world with multiple moving parts and a lot of ideas or concepts for me to try and unpack and explain here. And for that reason, I want to say up front that this retelling will be a bit condensed, as best as I can while still conveying key information. I want the story to feel digestible for someone that maybe hasn't played the game, so with that goal in mind, there might be some details that you think I've missed, and if you feel so inclined, feel free to comment anything below that I should have expanded on. I don't want this to come across as my not caring about the story or a deep misunderstanding of some key parts, but again, there's a lot here, and I want to try and not get lost in the weeds of it all for the sake of someone that might be approaching this for the first time. I love the world of Death Stranding, and the narrative has stuck in my mind for the last 6 years, so I'm happy to talk about its themes, its concepts, inspiration, the subtext, whatever. Even with everything I'll tell you in this video, there's a whole world deeper than what I could say, and I think it's pretty interesting to get into if you're interested, either with your own proper deep dive on its story or playing the game for yourself. And speaking of, you should play the game. It's a rich and connected game throughout its narrative, its gameplay and mechanics, and the world, and I think it's a fantastic experience to have firsthand. I'll have a spoiler warning a little later on once we've set the scene for what to expect from the story, if you could expect anything that happens in this game, so keep an eye out for that if you decide to check out the game for yourself. It's going to get weird, confusing, and feel a little bit all over the place, but stay with me. With all of that said, let's get right into it. The first thing we see when starting a new game is an excerpt from Nawa, a short story by Kobo Abe that, like I mentioned before, is one of the pillars for making the game and the journey we're about to set out on unique. To keep it short, the quote states two of mankind's earliest inventions, the rope and the stick. The stick to keep the bad away, and the rope to bring in the good. Wherever there are people, there will be a rope and there will be a stick. The game opens with a narration from our protagonist, Sam Porter. Sam tells us about explosions throughout history. An explosion to create time and space, create the universe, create the earth, and create humanity. Until the most recent explosion. We see Sam driving across the country on his bike, joining him in the middle of a delivery. Sam stops, seeing a storm approaching from behind with a flock of birds trying to outrun the rain as well. A drop lands on Sam's head, graying his hair immediately, and Sam puts on his hood and picks up the pace to get away from the storm. We begin to see more of the effects that the storm has as it catches up to some of the birds, aging them and killing them when it comes into contact. Sam makes a risky jump across a ravine and is distracted by a woman standing in the rain in front of him. Sam crashes his bike and is forced to continue on foot. Sam reaches a cave to try and wait out the rain, and while he undresses to relax, a photo he keeps inside of his suit falls out and onto the ground. As Sam reaches for the photo, the rain hits him again, landing on his hand and aging his skin. He begins to reach for the photo again, and his skin becomes inflamed and the hairs on his body begin to stand. Sam stops himself and looks out to the rain, sensing something coming. We see handprints from an invisible creature begin to enter the cave and surround Sam, until the woman from before grabs him and shushes him to not make a sound. The two try to remain quiet and back away from the creature. A deer deeper in the cave runs out, giving the creature a distraction to leave Sam and the woman alone. The two look outside of the cave and see multiple figures floating above, just outside of the cave, seemingly dissipating with the storm clearing up. The woman notices tears rolling down Sam's face and comments on it, saying it's a sign that he has dooms, a condition that allows people to connect to the other side or the world of the dead, further explaining that he seems to have level 2 dooms, a lower end of that spectrum, which just allows Sam to sense the creatures. Sam agrees, saying he's not as affected as she seems to be with her powers coming from her connection with dooms. The woman introduces herself as Fragile, while she is familiar with Sam as the man who delivers. Fragile offers Sam a gig with her company, Fragile Express, in an attempt to work with more honest people, while revealing to Sam that she doesn't think she has much time left herself since she's been soaked in timefall, the age-warping rain that we've been avoiding, which has covered her entire body. Fragile warns Sam about the timefall again, saying that it fast-forwards whatever it touches. She offers Sam a cryptobiote, a small creature that seems to help with the reproduction of blood cells. Sam refuses the snack and she teleports away, leaving Sam to complete his delivery to a nearby city. The walk down from the cave is accompanied by a song, Don't Be So Serious from Low Roar. I love this moment. I really enjoy the music throughout Death Stranding, and we're starting out with a really strong track. The game has a lot of these moments, little scenes accompanied with music to lock the player in on a certain emotion, like giving you a sense of relief or tricking you into a little introspection. I love it here. It feels like a perfect song to give the player to let them sit and stew on what they just saw. We scrounge up our packages that fell off our bike in the crash and complete the delivery to Central Knot City. Immediately upon completing the job, Sam gets an urgent request to help the local corpse disposal team, or CDT, to deliver a body to a nearby incinerator. In the world of Death Stranding, when someone dies, their body begins to go into necrosis, becoming the creatures we saw in the cave after 48 hours. The body we need to deliver was only recently discovered and seems to have been dead for at least 40 hours, so the clock is ticking on the body going full necro. The CDT wants Sam's help because the quickest route to the incinerator is full of BTs, or beached things, the creatures we saw before, which are the souls of people who died that are unable to cross into the afterlife, leaving a physicalized version of the soul that aggressively tries to reconnect with their body. Like Fragile told us before, Sam can at least sense these BTs, making him a useful member of this corpse disposal. The man helming the delivery introduces himself as Igor and attempts to shake Sam's hand, until he remembers reading in Sam's personnel file that he has a phobia of being physically touched. Sam and Igor load up into the back of a truck with the body, and the truck begins to head off towards the incinerator. Sam is doubtful of the route and doesn't seem too confident in the delivery at all, but Igor is assured that with Sam and with the help of a BB, or bridge baby, they'll be able to avoid any BTs that might come along. BBs are unborn, premature children taken from a brain-dead mother's womb that are able to accurately detect BTs due to their state of not technically being born into the world of the living and are considered to be somewhere in between alive and dead. Along the way to the incinerator, Igor gives us a bit more exposition about the world. The death stranding that caused this fractured America wasn't very long ago, just a few decades before now. He adds that the death stranding is the source of chiralium being exposed to the world, the material that creates the timefall phenomenon and that seems to attract more BTs. Following the death stranding, everyone was forced to live in isolation in secluded cities or bunkers all by themselves, forcing the world into the reliance of porters like Sam to deliver goods and information between civilizations. A bit further down the road, Igor spots an inverted rainbow, a sign of impending timefall, which is usually a sign for BT activity as well. Igor says that they'll need to cut through the BT area coming up to make it to the incinerator on time, and the truck driver picks up the pace. The truck's engine begins to stall, either because of the road conditions or exposure to the timefall, but with the stop, BTs have enough time to catch up to the team and knock the truck on its side. Everyone survives the crash, but Sam's leg is injured and the truck driver is pinned beneath the vehicle. The driver is exposed directly to timefall, showing us firsthand what effect it has on the body and how quickly it can take its toll. Igor tries to help the man out from under the truck, and suddenly his BB begins detecting BTs nearby. Sam tells everyone to shut up, to not even breathe, and everyone holds their breath to let the BT pass by. Unfortunately, our corpse has entered the final stage of necrosis and begins the transformation into a BT, approaching Sam. The BT grabs Sam's leg and seems to have a reaction to the touch of his blood, retreating and continuing on to Igor and the driver. The BT gets a hold of the driver, dragging him away from the crash, and Igor shoots him to prevent any suffering the BT wants to inflict. A man in a golden mask appears on top of the crashed truck and seemingly signals more BTs approaching, with them appearing around Sam and Igor. Igor tosses his BB to Sam and tells him to run away until he attempts to shoot himself to spare him from the BTs. They snatch Igor before he can pull the trigger and he's dragged into the air. Igor violently begins stabbing himself with a knife he's carrying, trying to kill himself before the BTs can take him. Sam picks up the BB pod and looks up to see a massive BT standing over him, with Igor entering the BT's mouth and triggering a void out, a massive explosion that occurs when a BT consumes a human body, destroying a large area and killing all life caught in the impact. Sam wakes up on a beach, naked and alone. He hears the BB crying beneath him and picks it up to console it, hugging it close to his body. The BB becomes a BT and crawls away from Sam, into the ocean. As Sam looks out to the horizon, we see hundreds of dead fish and whales stranded on the shore, along with 5 figures floating above the sea, and we finally get the title drop. As Sam takes in the scene above him, a woman approaches from behind, singing "London Bridge is Falling Down." Sam tries to follow the woman, but she gets too far into the ocean and Sam is pulled underwater, into the seam, a place between beaches and the world of the living. Sam is a repatriate, which in this world is someone that is able to access and use the seam to come back to life, a unique quality that only he and a few others possess. As Sam begins to come back into consciousness, he has a memory seemingly imposed on him from the BB he's connected with. The memory is of a man talking to the BB, calling himself the BB's father. Sam wakes up, looking out at the damage the void out has caused, and finishes his monologue from the opening of the game, telling us about the next explosion to come, the one that will be our last. I love this opening. It's intense, it's scary, and it sets up so much expectation for what these BTs can do, and then shows us exactly what they're capable of and why we should fear them. Igor and the driver being willing to die to save everyone from a void out, or maybe selfishly save themselves from suffering, is such a disturbing detail to the encounter that adds so much to the horror of the world, this supernaturally twisted America that we're just getting our first glimpse of. I really enjoy how the opening is paced too. It introduces a lot of information, but slowly lets you digest through breaks in the exposition, like the meeting with Fragile being broken up with the walk down to Central Knot, or the slow conversation with Igor in the truck bed. It feels like the game wants to respect the player and let them absorb information and try to process it, but not beat them over the head to overextend too much and get into dumping all this information immediately. It's a lot to take in, and a lot to explain, and a lot to think about, but I really do appreciate how it's handled here with its pace. We cut to Sam waking up again, now handcuffed to a bed in a sterile room. He's approached by a man introducing himself as Deadman, a doctor familiar with working with the dead. Deadman tells Sam that the cuff on his arm is a cufflink, a device used to keep in contact and track members of Bridges, a company that is helming the movement to reunite America as the United Cities of America. Sam tells Deadman that Central Knot City, the capital of the UCA, was leveled with the void out and Bridges was forced to relocate to a new city, or Knot, where they brought Sam along with them. Deadman tries to reach out to Sam to see a marking that Fragile left on his body where she touched him, with Sam stepping away and Deadman recognizing his phobia as aphanphosmphobia. Again, the fear of being physically touched and being emotionally vulnerable with others. Deadman concludes that due to his phobia, it makes sense that Sam exiled himself from society for so long and is working as an independent porter to avoid civilization. Deadman has a reason for this visit though. He wants to offer Sam a job to deliver morphine to the president of the UCA. The president is in the last stage of life due to a lifelong struggle with cancer, but wants to speak with Sam personally before they die. Sam begrudgingly accepts the job and begins to head into the city, into the isolation ward where people are kept in case of sudden death to monitor necrosis. Reaching the city and the ward, Deadman shows us the way into the president's room, revealing the identity of the president to us and Sam as the woman that raised Sam when he was abandoned as a baby, the woman that was the last president of the United States before the Death Stranding, Bridget Strand. Sam enters Bridget's room and is greeted by a man, Die Hardman, the director of bridges and the president's right hand. Die Hardman immediately recognizes Sam, saying it's been at least 10 years since they've last seen each other, and warns Sam that Bridget is in her final moments. Deadman and Die Hardman leave the room to let the two speak. Bridget reaches out to Sam, saying she knows he must hate her, but she needs his help to help Amelie complete her mission west to reconnect the cities of America. Bridget believes that without the UCA to connect everyone, the world will not endure and everyone will die. Sam doesn't believe in the idea of a country to govern anyone, and Bridget lunges at Sam to get his attention, falling out of her bed and crawling towards Sam to corner him. I love the parallel here of Bridget crawling to Sam like the BTs. It's an obvious visual connection, but it really gives you insight to how Sam might feel. Even a normal sick woman that he's known his entire life brings on this sense of dread due to his phobia. Bridget notices Sam's cufflink, assuming that it means he's already agreed to join Bridges and help. As she passes away, her face suddenly changes and becomes Amelie, telling Sam she'll be waiting for him on the beach. Medical staff come into the room and try to resuscitate Bridget to no avail. The room slowly clears out and is shown to be a projection of the Oval Office. Die Hardman tells Deadman that no one can know that Bridget died, that if her death got out, the idea and belief of Bridges would die with her. The two approach Sam to tell him that Bridget's body must be incinerated, asking Sam to deliver the body personally since he's the only man available to do it, with corpse disposal being wiped out. The two deliver the body to Sam, with Die Hardman giving a speech about her ideals of American Reconstructionism, wanting to continue her idea of rebuilding America into the United Cities. Sam loads up Bridget's body and begins the trek to the incinerator. Along the way to the incinerator, Die Hardman calls again to double down on Bridget being a symbol for the Reconstructionist movement of the country. I really like how firmly Sam tells everyone that he doesn't believe in the UCA, but it does feel like we're being pushed along for Sam to help regardless of his beliefs. Yes, someone has to incinerate the body, but we'll see in a bit that Sam kind of gets forced and tricked into helping more so than his perspective shifting and becoming more positive. Reaching the incinerator, Sam places Bridget's body into the chamber and begins the burn. Chiralium releases from her body and enters the atmosphere, bringing on a timefall storm and calling BTs into the area. Die Hardman reveals another piece of cargo that Sam was carrying, the BB that Igor gave Sam before the void out. Die Hardman tells Sam to dispose of the BB since, as a tool, it failed its purpose when it let Igor die and cause a void out. Sam hesitates with the order, seeing the BB as a living child inside the pod, and as the timefall rolls in, Sam decides to link with the BB to help him avoid being caught. We get out of the area and Sam heads back to Capital Knot City, with Deadman calling us to reprimand Sam for his connecting to the BB, as people with dooms like Sam have a strange reaction to BBs, creating an emotional feedback loop, potentially explaining the vision we saw when Sam first interfaced with the pod. Deadman reminds Sam that this BB is marked for disposal and that he'll have to take the BB to handle it. Sam removes the BB again, looking at them inside the pod, and connects with the pod again, bringing on another memory of the BB's father singing a nursery rhyme to them. The BB and Sam look at each other and seem to imprint on one another, creating an emotional bond, with the BB reaching out to Sam through the pod. Deadman approaches Sam and reminds him that the BB is going to be disposed of, but Sam tells him that everyone owes their life to the BB since it just saved him from the timefall storm at the incinerator. Deadman reluctantly agrees to look after and service the BB for Sam, then tells Sam that the new president wants to meet with him. Sam heads off to rest and shower before the meeting, and while he sleeps, he has a memory of being on the beach as a child, a memory of Amelie giving him a dream catcher as a reminder and connection for her to always be with him. Sam wakes up from his sleep and takes a shower, until he's called by Deadman to remind him that the president is waiting. Die Hardman greets Sam in the Oval Office and introduces us to Amelie as the new president of the UCA. Amelie and Die Hardman explain to us that Amelie has looked the same since Sam last saw her, and every time that we've seen her so far, because her body has been trapped on the beach, so she's unable to age. Deadman adds that Amelie is being propped up as the new symbol for the UCA, the next president of the new era of America. Sam is still hesitant to join, still sticking to his belief that the government government controlling everyone isn't going to help anyone survive. Die Hardman tells Sam what his mission would be if he chooses to accept, the mission being to re-establish and complete the work that Amelie began 3 years ago, to create a Chiral Network, a strand to connect everyone in the country to the UCA, so everyone can share their knowledge and resources in an attempt to rebuild. Amelie reached the West Coast, creating knots and connections to the Chiral Network across the country until her team, Bridges 1, was wiped out by the Homo Demons, a terrorist group that controls Edge Knot City on the West Coast. Sam again rejects the idea of Bridges reconnecting the country, saying it's just another form of control that people wouldn't want. Amelie says that being separate will not help people overcome what happened, that connecting and rebuilding together is how the world can move on. Die Hardman asks Sam to finish Amelie's mission, to reconnect the Chiral Network across the country and clean up the pieces that were left from the Bridges 1 expedition, bringing their knots online to the Chiral Network. Die Hardman shows Sam the Cupid, a device that can interface with chiral terminals to activate the network. Die Hardman and Amelie insist and rely on Sam's relationship and connection with Amelie to convince and manipulate him to help. Sam denies the mission still, stating that he's Sam Porter Bridges now, no longer a strand like Bridget and Amelie. In case it isn't obvious yet, names in Death Stranding are often very literal and given to people to reflect who they are, like Die Hardman saying he's difficult to kill, it's hard for him to die. Sam stating that he's not a strand anymore is playing on this idea. He's not someone that connects people, he's not the rope that brings people together like Amelie and Bridget want to be. It's a little on the nose, and sometimes the names do come across as silly or unserious, but I do like how the names are used throughout the game overall. We'll get some more character names as we progress, and we'll talk about them as they come up. Sam leaves the room and Die Hardman follows him out. Sam insists that the world will just fall apart again, that reconnecting everyone is just delaying the inevitable. Die Hardman lets Sam sleep on the thought to help the UCA, but Deadman stops Sam before he can leave to give us our BB and tell us that they've been reattuned to work with Sam's Doom signature. Sam has another vision of the beach, speaking to Amelie, who's trying to convince him that he's still part of the Strand family as Sam Strand. Sam denies it again, and Amelie talks about the meaning behind their name, Strand, as being part of a rope or a bond, but right now she's stranded, stuck on the beach. Despite that, she reminds Sam that they're still connected and bonded, they still have a strand. Amelie asks Sam to come find her, saying again she'll be waiting for him on the beach. As Amelie walks off into the ocean, the beach begins to change and collapse into a more intense, disastrous scene. Die Hardman again comes to Sam's room, asking if he's reconsidered. Sam agrees to join for Amelie's sake and to be with her after the mission. So, Sam reluctantly agrees, but before departing, Sam tells Deadman to look into what happens with BTs when they touch his blood, reminding the player of the reaction the BT had in the truck crash. Deadman is skeptical of the idea, but Sam pushes him to give it a shot. Sam suits up and heads out to begin connecting the eastern side of the continent, opening us up to the core of the gameplay that we'll be experiencing over the next couple dozen hours. As we exit the private room, we have another memory from BB. The father is talking to a bedridden woman, apologizing to her for what's happened to her, presumably the still mother for BB and likely the father's partner. The father grabs BB's pod and begins leaving the still mother's room, and the memory ends. Sam continues up the elevator out of his room, which I think is a great place for us to stop and for me to give that second spoiler warning I mentioned earlier. We've established our main character and his goal. We've gotten some world building and hopefully some intrigue about how that world operates, and we've established a few threads for Sam to develop and his journey across America. The narrative in Death Stranding is fantastic. It has emotional character stories, a fascinating supernatural world to unravel, all wrapped up in a great consistent theme of hope for the future and the wonderful things that making connections with others can give you. I do love playing Death Stranding, but the story here is really the main course. It'll be the guiding force for your playthrough, and it's worth the time and effort for the journey. And lastly, before we continue, the pacing of the story is going to pick up quite a bit from here. Now that the opening of the game is over and we've gotten the foundation for the story, there are large chunks of time focused solely on gameplay, with the story only poking through in codec calls and brief conversations with Sam, which is good. I like this choice. The first 2 hours of the game are packed with information and exposition. Now we get to actually see how the world and things functions out here on our own through gameplay. The story takes a backseat for the game through the middle part of a playthrough, mostly front and back-ended with some character development and revelations sprinkled in to keep you on the hook to see it through to the end. There's still a lot to cover through a full playthrough, but don't be surprised if it seems like we're moving fast. I promise there's sometimes a dozen hours of gameplay before the next plot beat unfolds, but that gameplay will be highlighted later in the video. Hopefully you've clicked ahead if you want to avoid spoilers right now, but for everyone else, let's keep on keeping on. For our first leg of the journey, we need to link up the East Coast through knots to create a full strand to connect each side of the country in one continuous strand, or rope. We travel between way stations and distribution centers in the area, connecting each and learning a little more about Amelie and her original expedition. Some of the folks out here that have been separated from society still see Amelie as the Great Connector, a symbol of hope for America and a virtuous woman trying to save the world. Others are not so hopeful about the UCA and Bridges, seeing the expedition like Sam, just setting them up for disappointment and delaying the inevitable. I like that we're faced with different perspectives out here. Most people are on the side for hope for the Chiral Network, but it's good to see some pushback from skeptics. It lets the player think about the network for themselves, since so far we've only been fed the perspective from inside of Bridges. Now we can see the common man's thoughts about our mission. I also really like how people view Amelie. She really is this bastion of hope and prosperity to some people. Some people think she's just a legend more than an actual person, and it's interesting to see how much truth Die Hardman's belief for a symbol of America can hold for some people. During the trek to connect the East Coast, at some point we have our first actual encounter with BTs in gameplay. Following the encounter, BB goes into autotoxemic shock and shuts down. Deadman offers to perform a checkup on them, and we hook the BB up to an incubator that can be found in all private rooms that we will stay in. The incubator acts as a virtual connection to the BB's original still mother, to reattune the BB to hormones that they'd be receiving while inside of the womb, to keep the facade of the womb intact so the BB can function. Deadman reminds Sam to not get too attached to equipment. If this BB isn't working, they'll have to assign him another one. He adds that no BB has ever been in service for over a year, and that Sam really shouldn't see BB as anything more than a tool for the expedition. He also follows up on Sam's inquiry about the BT reaction to his blood, saying they've just begun looking into some tests. Another Bridges key figure, Hartman, the head of BT and Beach Research, chimes in to say that they'll be trying other fluids and excretion from Sam on the BTs, since he's the first repatriate they've been able to gather samples from, using his sweat, urine, and feces collected from private rooms. Yeah, that's gross. Amelie visits Sam in the middle of the night, waking him up by singing London Bridge again. Amelie thanks Sam for starting the journey and tells him that if he presses on, they can go home together. Amelie doubles down, saying that humanity was meant to be together, meant to reconnect, and meant to survive. Sam says even if everyone's together, the world's still fucked with BTs and torn apart by terrorists. Amelie tells Sam that she'll be waiting for him on the beach and leaves. Exiting the private room, Sam has another memory from BB, this time the father speaking to someone in the room about when he and BB can leave. Sam tells Deadman about these memories, with Deadman giving the theory that with his unique Dooms connection, BB's emotions and memories might more strongly impact Sam as they bleed through the connection. Deadman isn't really sure what's going on since BB research has been completely wiped from public and private archives, but he wants to dig up any information he can to help us to understand what's going on. While out and connecting more knots to the network, we'll eventually come into contact with some more hostile people left out in the world. The first ones we'll bump into are mules, former porters that are said to have been exposed to chiralium for too long and for too much and have had their mental states altered, developing delivery-dependent syndrome, which leads them to stealing any cargo they see out in the open to be able to deliver it themselves. They'll attack Sam if we have any official cargo, wanting to steal it and take it to their camps. I like these guys. I think it's silly to have people addicted to the high of the delivery, but it creates another opposition for us out here in the field other than BTs, giving some more diversity to encounters and mixing it up on how you would traverse through the world. Are you willing to take the mules down in a fight? Are you going to avoid their camps entirely, or will you risk sneaking past their sensors to save yourself a detour? And while we're talking about them, there's also another group of enemies we'll find later in the game, the Homo Demons we were told about before. They're an active terrorist group willing to kill humans to trigger voidouts and cause further damage to society and the world. They are aggressive to Sam no matter what. If you come near their camps, they will hunt you down until you get away or take them out. I like these guys too. It provides the same variety in gameplay that the mules do, but it also ups the stakes with them being willing to kill Sam regardless of him having cargo. Eventually, Deadman reaches back out to Sam with an update about the tests with his blood against BTs. It seems like his blood, and other fluids, have the potential to repel and even harm BTs. Deadman says he'll have a prototype ready for us soon, and very shortly after, we're given our first anti-BT weapon, hematic grenades, essentially smoke bombs laced with Sam's blood to create a cloud of his blood in a small area. We continue inland towards the west to our final stop in this region, Port Knot City, the last city on this side of a massive ocean of tar that separates the east from the rest of the country. We connect Port Knot and rest in our private room before heading out tomorrow on a ship across the tar belt, a ship owned by Fragile Express. As we head down to the port to board Fragile's ship, a storm begins to roll in above the city. Sam is immediately captured by BTs and dragged a bit away from the city, into an open field right outside. The BTs let Sam go though, and Sam is greeted by the man we saw when Igor died, the man with the golden mask. He introduces himself as Higgs, the particle of God that permeates all existence, referring to the Higgs boson, a particle in quantum mechanics that exists in the atomic makeup of everything in the universe. I think. I really don't know. I'm not smart enough to explain or even remotely understand particle physics or quantum excitation, but here's a great example of what I was talking about earlier. There's a whole world of deeper subtext and meaning behind a lot of what we see throughout Death Stranding. What we can gather from Higgs' name right now, though, is that he's got a big ego if he's willing to name himself after something that's part of the creation of everything in the known universe. Higgs seems to be able to intuit, or maybe read Sam's thoughts, and learns that Bridget Strand is dead and that Amelie has been chosen to take her place as president. Higgs adds that he doesn't think she's cut out for politics and threatens to find her and keep her safe for us. Higgs tells Sam that he thinks he understands the Death Stranding and why it happened. He also adds that Amelie doesn't have dooms like Sam, Fragile, or himself, and that she's a different force entirely, a destructive force called an extinction entity. This is an important note to keep in your mind going forward, that Amelie is referred to as this extinction entity. It's not going to be expanded on for a while, but try to keep it in mind as we do continue. Higgs tells Sam that he isn't a bridge, and that Higgs feels like he's more of a bridge than Sam could ever be, with a deeper connection to the beaches and the dead than anyone. And he quickly wants to prove that to us, summoning a massive BT and forcing us to fight it. I like this moment quite a bit from Higgs. He actually mocks the player here and breaks the fourth wall, asking, "Isn't this what you were waiting for? Aren't you tired of the grind?" It's a direct jab at a player that might not be into the gameplay loop of deliveries, so here's your excitement, here's your boss fight, and here's your game over. I really like this energy from Higgs, or I guess I should say from the writing, because it feels like a response to criticism that a lot of people might have, that the game is boring and you just want a quick fix of action, and you aren't taking in the game properly if you can't enjoy the journey. Thankfully, we got those hematic grenades from Deadman and the team, and the weapons made with Sam's blood, and were able to effectively fight back against the BT, becoming the first person in history to defeat and kill a beached thing. Following the fight, Fragile meets Sam to board her ship, offering him a crypto buyout for his victory and giving the player and Sam some more information about Higgs, and revealing that they worked together in the past. Sam confronts her on that, asking if she wants to help bridges connect the world or just fuck it up with people like him. Fragile is a little taken aback by the question and answers that she just wants things to be different. We board Fragile's boat and begin sailing across the tar belt. On the ship, Sam and Fragile talk a bit more. Sam is very distant from Fragile, both in the conversation and physically placing himself far away from her. Fragile tries to talk to Sam a bit more about her relationship with Higgs, but Sam falls asleep, so we'll have to save this conversation for later. Amelie visits Sam in his dream to show him a memory of Sam visiting the beach as a child. Amelie says that she had no idea she was alive on this beach. She thought that she was dead and alone and trapped until Sam visited her for the first time. In the memory, Amelie gives Sam a necklace with a dream catcher, telling him it's a sign that they'll always be together and creating a strand between them. Amelie walks young Sam off the beach and tells him that she'll always be waiting for him on the beach, waiting for him to find her. Amelie adds that as long as you have a body in the physical world, you can't come back and forth between beaches on your own. You must have a connection to bring you back to the beach. She says she can't leave the beach either, not until she makes things whole again. Amelie tells Sam to come back and find her, that she'll be waiting for him on the beach. The ship's voyage ends and we disembark in Lake Knot City, the next knot to tie into the Strand. With Lake Knot online, Amelie gives us a call through the Chiral Network and tells us a bit more about the area, saying this next chapter of the journey will be harder than the last. Amelie explains that the 3 major cities in the region were happily a part of bridges and ready for the Chiral Network, supplied and kept in contact by Fragile Express, until a year ago when terrorists detonated an old world nuke in Middle Knot City, leveling the place entirely and attacking South Knot City, wiping out half of that city as well with the use of supply lines created by bridges and Fragile Express. With Middle Knot and South Knot destroyed, this section of the country needs its Chiral Network connection to be held up by individuals in the area that have to be convinced to join the UCA. Fragile Express has been keeping the preppers and small settlements stable out here on their own and offers to help bridges get in contact with the people out here. Sam rests up before his journey across Middle America and has another memory of a visit to the beach when he was a child. He gave Amelie a kipu, a knot used to keep track of information. Amelie says that she'll add a knot for every time that Sam visits her and wears the kipu on as a necklace. Amelie says it must be very special to Sam if he was able to transport it to the beach, and he says it is, because he made it just for her. Fragile wakes Sam up in his room, saying that he needs a form of identification to show that he's part of Fragile Express, again to use her connections as an in with the preppers in the region. She gives Sam a Masanga bracelet as a literal and metaphorical strand for Sam to have with Fragile. Fragile begins to tell Sam about what happened before the nuclear attacks. Her company claimed the territory to help people survive until Higgs joined and fucked everything up, ruining her and the company's reputation and branding them as terrorists along with him. Sam asks if she plans to take Higgs down by herself, which Fragile responds by saying she's not alone anymore, she has Sam. She's been right alongside him the whole time, in the cave, at Port Knot City, and now here. She shows Sam that she's capable of using her beach to travel physical space in our world, essentially able to teleport to places she's visited before. Fragile offers to help Sam and let him use this ability to quickly travel if he agrees to help her get back at Higgs and to let her deal with him when the time comes. This gives us an in-universe explanation for fast travel, if you feel so inclined, but I also like what it adds to our understanding of beaches. Fragile says she can access a beach, her beach, and she can use that to travel. What we've seen of beaches so far has just been Sam, or maybe Amelie's beach, which doesn't seem to grant Sam any ability past repatriation. Fragile also says that with Sam and his connection to his beach, she might be able to find Higgs and confront him on the beach as well, again adding to and deepening the mystery of the beaches. For now though, we're heading out to connect the eastern and western sides of the middle region of America. This can be the longest break in gameplay, the journey to the next major knot, South Knot City, spanning across episode 3 and 4 in the game structure. I haven't mentioned it yet, but the story does feature an episodic formula for major plot threads, usually naming the episode after the most major character in the episode and tying that episode to the character's story, and usually completing their arc within that framing. The first 2 episodes were about Bridget and Amelie, which makes sense, we learned a lot about them for the opening. This episode is about Fragile, so we'll be learning more about her as we make our way to South Knot. While we're out here connecting preppers and small settlements to the Chiral Network, we again get another understanding of how people outside of bridges think of the UCA, and I think the first 3 preppers that you bring online showcase the relationship perfectly. The engineer tells us that he doesn't necessarily trust Bridges, but he does trust Fragile, despite the stories and her involvement with the nuclear attacks, so he's willing to give us a chance. The craftsman doesn't trust anyone, wanting to be on his own, but willing to let us try and prove to him that the network can be helpful. Last, the elder is skeptical, but again lets us prove to him that the UCA can help and be trusted. This is going to be the flow and progression for bringing people onto the Chiral Network for the rest of the game, varying levels of trust for the UCA, deciding how much work it'll be for Sam to get them to sign on and join the Strand. So I'm going to gloss over most of the prepper stories out here. They represent smaller sub-stories to the main characters and the overarching plot of the Chiral Network, so your mileage and interest in these will vary, but I don't think they're particularly interesting to my retelling here. There's some nice stories out here with the preppers, some fun surprises and rewards, a lot of cameos from real people you might recognize, but yeah, I'm gonna mostly smooth over talking about them. Moving along to the south towards the first major knot, Fragile asks to speak with us in person to talk a bit more about Higgs. Sam waits for her in his private room, taking a nap and having a nightmare of his body suddenly aging on the beach. Waking up, Fragile is helping herself to a shower in Sam's room. Sam waits for her to step out, and the two begin to chat about her reputation and involvement with Higgs. Fragile steps up to Sam about this, questioning what kind of things he's heard and telling him what really matters to her. Her father's vision for Fragile expressed to help bring America back together to what the country was before the Death Stranding. Her father passed away recently though, which left her in a vulnerable place that Higgs used to exploit her and Fragile Express. Everything was going well between Fragile and Higgs' business, but one day Higgs hijacked Fragile's security clearances and used her company name as a front for smuggling weapons and bombs into cities. Fragile says that it all came to a head when one day Higgs tricked Fragile herself into bringing a nuclear warhead into Middle Knot City. Fragile admits to being the one that bombed Middle Knot since she was blind to Higgs and his plans, and says that she tried to stop his operation from then on, doing everything she could to save South Knot City afterwards. She tried to get the nuke out of South Knot before it could detonate, but Higgs was onto her and forced her to make a choice between South Knot and herself, taking her body from her, aging her with a timefall. She ends her side of the story with everything was true, except for all the lies, which I absolutely love. It's such a heartbreaking statement that yes, she was part of this terrorist scheme and she had her hand in what Higgs had done, but she didn't want to be a part of it and nobody knows the full story of what she tried to do to stop it. Fragile ends the talk with saying she just wants to stop Higgs from ruining her name and her father's legacy with Fragile Express, reaffirming to Sam that she'll be there for him against Higgs. Now that we have a strong enough connection from Lake Knot City in the north and some preppers along the way to South Knot City, it's time to connect the two cities into the Strand. Mama, another member of Bridges and the co-creator of the Chiral Network, asks Sam to bring a delivery from Lake Knot to South Knot, but also warns us of an intense storm forming in the area around South Knot City, since the presence of the Chiral Network has increased chiral density in the region. While we're heading out from Lake Knot, the packaging and processing system has an error for an additional package. A Bridges team member comes out to greet us and hand-deliver the package, asking Sam to make sure it's delivered to Fragile. Sam scoops up the package and, he gave us a thermonuclear bomb. Cool. we load up and head south towards the city, meeting Fragile along the way. When we get to Fragile, she opens the package and identifies it as, you guessed it, a bomb. I really don't know why the cargo menu decides to ruin this reveal. It could have just been labeled in the menu as like suspicious package or something, but I don't know. It is at least funny to suddenly see nuclear weapon in your cargo list following the cutscene. When Fragile identifies the bomb, Sam puts together that the man who handed it off was Higgs himself, and Fragile tells Sam that he needs to dispose of the weapon soon with it being on a ticking countdown. Sam heads off to a nearby tar lake, tossing the bomb inside, which is able to contain the detonation. Fragile meets us at the shore, and Sam tells her that they've both saved South Knot now, showing that he believed her story and might even trust her now. He asks her specifically what happened at South Knot, what happened when Higgs caught her. We get a flashback of the day Fragile stopped the nuclear delivery, with Higgs holding her at gunpoint and bringing on a timefall storm. Higgs tells her she can either let the bomb go off here or run through the timefall without protection to dispose of the weapon. Higgs covers her face to only destroy her body to preserve her image to the public so that she can remain the face of the company with the reputation Higgs has now given them. Fragile accepts her fate to take the damage to her body and begins running into the timefall, saying that she's fragile but not that fragile. A lot of people make fun of this line, and it is a little cheesy, but I like it. I can't help it. I think it's a good character line and it sums her up nicely. She's kind and gentle, but she's got a strong will and determination. Ending the flashback, Sam says that he thinks she's a hero, but Fragile can't accept that. She's regretted the choice to save South Knot because it destroyed her body and took her life away from her. Sam says that it doesn't matter if she regrets it, that she made the right decision when it mattered and saved the city. I really like this from Sam. He's open and willing to have a dialogue with Fragile now that he trusts her and knows the truth, and he's even willing to be someone to confide in and rely on emotionally, with him not letting her wallow in self-doubt. This is one of the first signs of Sam starting to open up and let people in, which again, I really enjoy. Fragile reminds Sam of her request, that he beats Higgs but leaves him alive for her to deal with him. She says she needs to know why he betrayed her and is even willing to forcefully get the information out of him. Fragile offers Sam a cryptobiote again, and this time he finally accepts, again showing us that he's starting to let her pass the walls he has up. With the nuke out of the way, we can head back into the real action and deliver some construction materials to South Knot. With the delivery, South Knot is on the Chiral Network, and Amelie calls to congratulate us on connecting half of the middle region of America. Her call is cut short, with her signal suddenly fading. Mama and Die Hardman tell us that the storm that was rolling in earlier is here and more aggressive than they predicted, asking Sam to go outside and investigate how bad it looks in the local area. Heading outside, it looks real bad. Cars and structures are being lifted into an intense cloud formation in the sky, and Sam begins to go along with them, until a flash of light fills the screen. We then cut to a visual of World War I soldiers marching and dragging a man out of shallow tar in a trench, forming into the man we've been seeing in the BB memories. Yeah, what the fuck? If you've thought it's been weird so far, we're just getting started. Sam runs across a battlefield in World War I, seemingly running through no man's land in the middle of a twisted depiction of a fight with ghostly soldiers and bioorganic vehicles on the field. It's insane. Visually, conceptually, this is absolutely ridiculous and I love it. I'll talk about the visuals, presentation, and gameplay here later in the video, but man, I can't help myself from gushing for a second. This sequence is again just one of those things that makes Death Stranding a unique experience that you couldn't have trained me to try and predict. Running through the area, Sam eventually finds the father, who fights Sam and continuously mumbles about wanting his BB back, directing a small squad of soldiers to pursue Sam in a firefight. Again, I'll get into the detail of this later, I promise, but with the father down in the fight, Sam approaches him. The father wakes up briefly to lunch for the BB pod and ends up embracing Sam, bringing on another BB memory, a memory of the father running with the BB pod while an alarm signals around him. Sam suddenly wakes back up outside of South Knot City with Mama calling him and saying his connection went out for just a few seconds. Sam tells her what happened, that he was on a battlefield for what felt like hours fighting for his life, and Mama wants to check his cufflink logs to verify herself what happened to him, and to bring her lab onto the Chiral Network, which means it's time for Mama's episode. Reaching her lab, Sam immediately gets a signal of BT activity in the area, pointing towards the interior of the building. Looking around, we see small baby handprints from a BT climbing across the ceiling of the building. Mama greets us and tells us not to worry about the BT, taking it into her arms. Mama simulates breastfeeding the BT and releases it to rest in the building. Sam asks what the hell is going on, and Mama tells him that it's her daughter. Mama takes a look at the weather signals from the storm that just passed, classifying it as a supercell, and says that, like she just said, it passed in only a few seconds. Sam plays his cufflink data of the battlefield he was in, and Mama begins to theorize on what happened, saying he was trapped between two different spacetimes, essentially in another reality. The chiral levels in the area spike, upsetting Mama's daughter. Mama explains that the Cupid is unfortunately increasing chiral density in the areas that the network has been established, which leads to more BT activity and more timefall, even potentially leading to another Death Stranding. It's a known issue that she documented and tried to fix, but it seems like our Cupid might be faulty, so she warns us about activating any more knots until she can solve the issue. Thankfully, she already has an idea, and she's already printed a new Cupid for Sam, but she's only responsible for the hardware. The software of the Cupid was designed by the other co-creator of the Chiral Network, Lochna, the woman in charge of Mountain Knot City. Another chiral spike in the area upsets Mama's daughter again, with Mama adding that she's been especially difficult lately and thinking that the other side, the world of the dead, wants her back, or that her daughter wants to go back herself. Mama admits the situation isn't practical and admitting that it has to end soon, so Sam asks exactly what happened to her, again showing us a more caring side of Sam that's starting to develop. Mama's daughter was due and she was ready and waiting in the hospital for her C-section, until the bomb in South Knot went off and destroyed the building. Mama was stuck under the rubble, forced to survive off rainwater and wait for any help for days, shouting and screaming to no avail. Eventually, Mama had to give birth and her daughter didn't make it, becoming a BT. When the timefall stopped, her daughter would cry, eventually helping a rescue team locate Mama. Mama says her daughter's life was the price to pay for her own survival, saying that her daughter saved her and was the only reason she's still alive. With how BTs are physically locked down in the world of the living, Mama could never move on and chose to stay with her daughter, even if she was a BT now. Yeah, that's a rough one. Still gets me a little choked up watching it. Margaret Qualley's performance as Mama is fantastic in the cutscene, and she really conveys the fear and desperation she must have had. On top of that, it's just gut-wrenching with Mama being forced to lose her daughter and stuck to where she died. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire game, solely because of the raw emotion that it taps into. Oh, and obviously, Mama is called Mama because of her unique connection with her BT daughter. Mama asks Sam for another sample of his blood for a new test against the BTs, and asks him to leave her alone with her daughter for a little while. Before he can head out, she also adds that she thinks bringing the chiral network to more people is worth the potential danger, and that bringing people together should be our top priority. Regardless, our next stop is Mountain Knot City to repair the Cupid with Lochna's help. Along the way, Sam takes a rest and has another dream or vision on the beach, finding a BB and hugging it to console it from crying. The BB turns into a twisted doll and Sam sees Higgs kill Amelie and steal her Kipu, putting it on himself. When Sam wakes up, Amelie is calling Sam through a hologram, telling him that Higgs reached where she has been hiding and has taken her hostage. She called Sam one last time to tell him to keep building the network, again telling him that once he's done, they can go east together again, and that she'll be waiting for him on the beach. Sam notices that her Kipu is missing outside of the vision, but Amelie seems to ignore his question about it. As he leaves his private room, Sam has another memory imposed from BB, another memory of the father getting shot in the back while trying to run with the BB pod in his arms. Deadman calls Sam to update us on his research on the BBs. He's been digging around since the Chiral Network has added some archives that weren't previously available. Apparently, Bridges were the first people to start using BBs after the Death Stranding and the cover-up on BB testing. It was the terrorists outside of the UCA, with the idea to track BTs and use them as a weapon against the UCA. Bridges began using BBs again as a countermeasure against the terrorists, and Deadman makes the leap in logic that the public records of BBs must have been wiped because of their origins coming from such a dark place. Deadman also found something about the original BB experiments from long ago, apparently starting right before the Stranding. The BB tests were approved and funded by the American government, with Deadman assuming that they were started to further understand the Death Stranding. Despite the obvious ethical concerns with testing on children and brain-dead women, the government continued the testing and led to the Death Stranding we're living through today. The then president was killed in the void out that began the Death Stranding, and Bridget, the vice president at the time, stepped in as president and fully halted BB testing and got rid of all the evidence of the experiments. Deadman wonders how the terrorists would have gotten their hands on BBs just a few years ago if everything was scrapped so long ago, telling us he'll be sure to let us know if he finds out. Reaching Mountain Knot City, the leader, Lochna, is apprehensive about the delivery and tells Sam that what the UCA is doing is harming the environment, like Mama told us, and says that Mountain Knot wants no part in the network. Sam is a little dense here and asks Lochna if she's Mama, just playing a part. Lochna takes offense to the question and tells him to leave, refusing to help with the Cupid repair. Die Hardman calls and says that we need to find a way to get Mountain Knot on board. She's an important knot to the strand across the country. Die Hardman tells us that Lochna is actually Mama's twin sister, the two having a special, unique connection that allows them to communicate through dooms, which gave them the idea for the Chiral Network for the UCA. After Mama's accident at South Knot, the sisters had a falling out and haven't spoken since, with Lochna cutting off the UCA and bridges as well. So we return to Mama to talk to her about what happened between her and Lochna and see if there's anything we can do to remedy the relationship. Reaching her lab, she's sleeping at her desk, seemingly passing out in the middle of working on a design for Sam's cufflink, a new blade integrated into the cuff to cut the cords that hold BTs to the physical world. Mama wants to give them a test run, telling Sam to sever her connection to her daughter. Before we do, Mama fills us in on what happened between her and Lochna. Before the Bridges 1 expedition, Lochna fell in love and wanted to have a child with her partner, but she was unable to carry a child. Her partner died, and when Lochna was in a deep depression and even suicidal, Mama offered to carry her child using her partner's frozen sperm and an egg from Lochna, allowing her to have the child that she wanted. Mama carried the baby to term until the attack she told Sam about before. Without a way to communicate, Lochna thought that Mama ran away with her child and severed the mental and emotional connection that the two shared before, leaving Mama alone with her daughter and Mama unable to tell Lochna the truth. Again, very strong, emotional stuff here, and it's carried by Margaret Qualley and her performance. Sam cuts Mama's umbilical cord and her daughter is able to pass to the other side. Mama immediately collapses, having an intense reaction to severing the cord, and Sam has to carry her on his back to Lochna in Mountain Knot to talk to her personally. Along the way, Mama begins to tell us a little more about the connection her and Lochna shared. Mama remembers being in the womb with Lochna and they were conjoined twins originally. A surgery separated them, but they were still connected emotionally and spiritually, sharing emotions and being able to connect, as well as sharing a beach together which acted as their hub for connection. The shared space on the beach gave them the idea for the Chiral Network, a way for everyone to share their thoughts just like they can. As we approach Mountain Knot, Mama becomes quiet and thanks Sam for taking her back to Lochna. Lochna reaches us at the terminal and reunites with Mama, touching foreheads and seemingly re-establishing their connection. Lochna immediately understands what happened and the two make up instantly. Mama tells Lochna that she needs to fix the Cupid for Sam and make the world whole, just like they can now be whole again too. With that, Mama passes away in Lochna's arms. Lochna talks to Sam and tells him that she regrets the time apart from Mama, saying she thought Mama stole the child and severed the connection to avoid her. She forgives Mama and returns the Cupid with a software update. Lochna also tells Sam that she thinks that when Mama and her daughter were trapped in the rubble, and with her daughter's death, Mama died too, but her body, or Ha, remained in our world with the child's soul, or Ka. Mama knew she was technically dead, hiding her vitals from Bridges since the accident, and Lochna is thankful for her sacrifice and actions to try and keep their daughter safe. With our improved Cupid, Sam connects Mountain Knot to the Chiral Network. Sam turns back to Lochna, who seems to be having a conversation with Mama. It seems that Mama was able to reconnect with Lochna on their beach, and the two have become one again, like they were in the womb, like they were meant to be. It's weird, but they seem happy about it, so I'm happy for them. Lochna takes on Mama's part for supporting Bridges from here forward, with Mama a part of her soul to support her in the role. Sam heads to bed to rest after an emotionally exhausting day. Understandable, honestly. Waking up, Sam finds BB missing from the room, but Deadman quickly arrives to clear up any worry. Unfortunately, he actually ends up adding more to that worry, saying that our BB has a serious issue, bringing us into Deadman's episode. Deadman begins to explain BBs in detail to Sam, reminding us that BBs are meant to be used as tools, as a bridge balancing between two worlds, between the living and the dead. But our BB has been leaning too far into the living world with its connection to Sam. Sam calls BB his partner, and Deadman reminds him that BBs are meant to be tools and nothing more. Deadman is worried that his tool is becoming an actual child, growing, gaining weight, and new memories. He adds that soon, if this continues, BB won't be able to serve their function, and removing them from the pod has a 70% risk of immediate death. Deadman says that the only solution is to take BB for an extended period of time to reset their calibration, giving them a little tug to the land of the dead. Deadman says that with the reset, the BB will return to the state that Sam acquired them in, potentially forgetting their time altogether, which Sam is concerned that Lou will forget him. I love this quick characterization for Sam and BB, who I will be calling Lou going forward. We've been relying on Lou to avoid BTs, we've been taking care of Lou, maybe having some fun with Lou when we do a big jump or drive really fast, and through that gameplay, you might have gotten to attach to the BB, just like Sam clearly has, and he's recently decided on calling her Lou, short for Louise. This is all real for Sam, the reliance on Lou and the bond that they've made. So obviously, he's gotten a deeper connection to her, and I love that it comes out so suddenly like a punch in the stomach. Just to add insult to injury, the next couple of hours will be spent entirely without Lou, and there's a lot of small things that Sam does throughout gameplay to show that he's gotten used to having Lou around and misses her, like calling out to her and still checking to see how she's doing. It's great, it's subtle but effective. Sam doesn't let Lou go without a fight, with Deadman forcibly taking the pod and Lou letting out a little stream to show her protest too. Deadman says he wants to take a shower, which, yeah, he just got peed on, fair enough, but he waits for Sam to enter with him. Sam gets the hint and they go in the shower together, with Deadman adding that it's the only place their conversation can't be recorded. Deadman has some new information about BBs, digging up some more archives about the original research. Apparently, Bridget ordered the BB research to continue in private, despite the obvious dangers following the void out that killed the previous president. Bridget believes that the BBs were the key to solving the Death Stranding, not only to be used as BT detectors, but to actually use them to travel to the beach. Sam asks why Deadman wants to hide this from Die Hardman, and they both agree that they're unsure if he can be trusted since there's so much mystery around him. Deadman says that any more information is classified to the highest level of clearance, only Die Hardman can access it. But with the Chiral Network expanding, fragments of the archives are appearing as well, which might allow Deadman to piece together history. He promises to keep us up to date and heads out with Lou. To help facilitate Lou's operation and reset, we have to increase the Chiral Network to make process of the reset move a little quicker. We had to get the Chiral Network out here anyways, so lucky us. 2 birds, 1 stone, and all that. I like this episode a lot. It returns a lot of the initial tension with BTs now that Lou can help you detect them. The horror and intensity of BT encounters has admittedly been a bit diminished with our options to deal with them, and I'll expand on that later, but it's back here with a whole new layer of unpredictability. Obviously, I like Lou and I appreciate the relationship with Sam, but this episode is one of the more memorable with its gameplay because of this consideration. So we link up some more preppers, increase the chiral density, and Lou makes good progress with her operation. Deadman suggests that one more connection ought to be the final push for Lou's realignment with her still mother, so we head out to get another prepper online. We're warned about another supercell passing through the area, and Deadman tells us to meet up with him following the next knot because he doesn't want to get caught in the storm alone. I love this delivery. I'm getting ahead of myself talking about the gameplay a bit here, but since it's tied to a narrative moment, I think it's worth talking about here. Delivering during the supercell formation on top of a mountain in the middle of a blizzard is such a unique challenge for the deliveries in the game, and it creates one of the most memorable treks you'll complete. It's a literal uphill battle as you climb through the snowstorm with a pretty considerable cargo load to bring up the mountain. It isn't made easy on you whatsoever. On top of all of that, since it's the first delivery to establish the chiral network in the area, you can't rely on other players to be generous and help you over the hump. It's all you for this one. With that local not online, we head out to meet up with Deadman. Apparently he was doing some field tests with Lou to make sure that her recalibration has gone smoothly. As we approach the mountain cabin though, the supercell makes contact with the surface and begins pulling things into the storm like before, including Sam, Deadman, and Lou. We are again transported into another reality to face the BB's father. This time we're in the middle of World War II, seemingly on the Western Front, again in the middle of a battle. We start the scene with Deadman searching for a place to hide from all the action, carrying Lou into the sewer system to hide from the father, who's revealed to us to be Clifford Unger. We got his last name Unger when we were pulled into World War I, but now we have a lock on his identity, which we'll get into later. Speaking of Cliff, we see him deploy his soldiers again and begin the search for BB. Sam wakes up in the middle of the action, in the middle of a firefight in the streets with a call from Deadman. Deadman tells Sam that we need to find him and meet up as soon as possible to get BB and stop Cliff. With Sam warning Deadman that he needs to keep moving since he's not hunting them, he just wants his BB. So we travel through the warfront, narrowly avoid some artillery and gunfire, and we find Cliff to take him down and release us. I really enjoy this set piece too. It's even more visually intense and dramatic than the first one in my opinion, but the gameplay here is a little rougher, which again I'll dig into later. But I just want it on record now that I think my enjoyment of these sequences unfortunately goes downhill with each encounter. I do want to bring attention to something Clifford does during these sequences. He talks out to BB and seemingly to Sam, and through his dialogue it seems like he's just as confused as we are about what's going on, saying that he's just a soldier that wants his BB. It's interesting, it creates a layer of sadness to the encounter. Not even he knows why we're here, he just wants to be back with his kid. As Cliff goes down, Sam approaches him again to let him speak. Cliff blames himself for what happened to Lou, for letting Bridges test on them, and lunges at Sam to embrace him again. In the struggle, Sam grabs his dog tags and rips them off, and we get another memory from Lou. This time a quick sequence of Cliff running with a pod in his arms and showing us he was wearing these dog tags then too. Sam wakes up again outside of the nightmare, back in his private room. He approaches Lou's pod on the wall, and we get a quick little scare of the pod housing a creepy doll instead of Lou, with Sam waking up from the nightmare immediately after. Let's talk about the scares and horror as a whole in Death Stranding for a second. Obviously, the world we're in isn't exactly comforting and exciting, full of monsters that can literally destroy the world and terrorists that want to let them. But I don't think Death Stranding really utilizes the horror of the world very much outside of these scripted sequences to give you a little fright. And I do like these sequences. You're not in control, so something could happen to Sam that you can't fight back against, which makes them fun, but again, they're scripted cutscenes or encounters that always have the same outcome. In gameplay, pushing around BT territory and sneaking past them is tense and can be nerve-wracking, sure, but once you get those hematic grenades to fight back, it changes the pace and position you have in these encounters, especially when you eventually get stronger and bigger tools to hunt BTs. I like the progression of power for the player. I really appreciate how different the opening of the game feels with BTs compared to the mid to late game. Even on my 4th playthrough, the one for this video, the opening hours of the game still give me that feeling it did the first time around. But I think this diminishes from the feeling that the world and the BTs are supposed to give you. Once you give me a hematic grenade and an anti-BT handgun, they should be scared of me, which again is kind of at odds with what the world is presenting to us. I'm of two minds with this. I do think that the tables turning with BTs is fun and a good way to give the player some excitement, but I'm still stuck with the world feeling less oppressive and daunting than I think it was supposed to. I want to talk about this a little more later on, but I do want the thought of the game becoming less scary as time goes on to be with you because I think the narrative beats also take from that and become much more focused on character interactions, much less on the tension with BTs like we saw in the opening. Anyways, now that Sam's awake, we can check on Lou. She seems to be deep asleep, but when Deadman pops into the room to check on us, Lou reacts to him, excited to see him. Deadman explains that he brought us back here after the fight with Cliff and apologized to Sam for being so callous about his relationship with Lou. Deadman tells us that he learned that Lou was going to be the name of Sam and his partner's baby if she had made it through her pregnancy, realizing now that Sam is projecting the loss of his child onto his BB, Lou. Sam tries to deny this, saying he doesn't know what Deadman is even talking about, but Deadman gives him the facts from records he recovered recently. 10 years ago, a sudden death happened in the middle of a city, causing a void out and destroying everyone in the vicinity except for her husband, a man with dunes and a known repatriate. Everyone began to question the incident. Did the man know and hide his wife's body to cause the void out, knowing only he'd survive? Since he was the only survivor, he was easy to blame and the only suspect for the damage, and since Sam was a member of Bridges, they were taking the blame as well. Sam exiled himself from Bridges and from society. The records show that Sam's wife, Lucy, was pregnant at the time and they had planned to name their son Lou. Sam denies the story, but Deadman continues and mentions that Bridget told him the story herself, saying that she talked about Sam all the time, and Deadman shows us the photo that Sam has been carrying around. A photo of him and Bridget along with Lucy, visibly pregnant. Sam doesn't want this confrontation, telling Deadman to shut up and trying to distance himself in the room, but Deadman persists and opens up to Sam about his life. Deadman tells Sam that his body is made up of 70% recycled organs and tissue from cadavers, hence the name Deadman. But not because he was rebuilt with donations, he was artificially created and born through stem cell research. In his creation, his artificial organs didn't stimulate life properly, so he was given pieces from the dead, calling himself a real-life Frankenstein's monster. Deadman says that he never had a birthday, he was never really born, just one day existed without a soul, no Ka. And because of that, Deadman doesn't have a beach, no afterlife, nothing to connect him to the world of the dead to give him hope of something after his life. So we can understand why he's called Deadman, a literal dead man walking, composed of artificial bits and bobs and donated parts from the dead where his artificial pieces failed. Deadman adds that visiting Cliff's reality was awful for him, but he didn't hate his time there because he knew that Sam was coming to help him, which was new to him. It was the first time he's ever felt a connection, or strand, to someone else. I love this. It's our first real big emotional moment with Sam, and we're starting to see the effect he's having on people by being around in their lives again. Obviously, we did get that with Fragile and with Mama and Lakna too, but Sam was mostly a vehicle for their strand to be reestablished, and Fragile wasn't so on the nose with what she wanted to tell Sam. Here we have a direct bond between Sam and Deadman, with him explicitly stating it to us. Slowly, Sam is re-entering people's lives and changing them for the better, even if he doesn't realize it or accept it himself right now. And that's the real core of the game. Oops, I lied. It isn't just about reconnecting America. It's about connecting Sam with people again and letting him bring down those walls so he can feel whole and heal. It's a beautiful and wonderful journey for Sam, and it only gets better as the game goes on. Deadman moves on to talking about Cliff, with Sam picking up the dog tag that managed to travel back with him. It's a standard issue US military dog tag for Clifford Unger. Deadman looked into who he was and found a deep archive match for his ID. Clifford was part of the US Army Special Forces, fighting in the Middle East. Unfortunately, that's all we've got for now, but Deadman promises to continue digging. He also lets us know that it shouldn't be a problem for them to talk openly anymore, as their conversations aren't going to be monitored. Deadman leaves, and Hartman gives us a call to come by his lab nearby and connect him to the Chiral Network. He also tells Sam that he's been looking into the data from Sam's supercell traveling and says that it seems like he's been transported to a beach, seemingly Clifford's Beach. Hartman also gives us a full breakdown on what beaches are, which is the first time for the player as to what's been going on. In the world of Death Stranding, everyone's Ha, or their body, is together in the world of the living, on Earth, but everyone's souls, their Ka, all have independent beaches, which are formed by their beliefs and their mind, forming through their religion, philosophies, and life experiences. So beaches can take on all kinds of forms, and in those forms they connect as part of a multiverse for beaches, not truly connected, but in a shared space of beaches. Hartman also adds that when many people die at once, like in a void out or during a battle, their beach can become connected and form a strand field, explaining Clifford's Beach as a strand field for war and twisted and shaped by his military service. I promise the game isn't going to get into multiversal bullshit like every piece of media has tried to dip their toe into the last few years. I really don't know why it's explained as a multiverse past explaining the beaches existing simultaneously but separately. I think you could reasonably ignore that classification as a multiverse because I don't really think the idea comes up again, and was likely only used as a way to communicate beaches not being directly connected. Regardless, I do like the extra info on beaches. They're a sort of existence in the afterlife that is created for everyone based on who they were in their lives, and that's interesting. It explains to us why Cliff brings us to a battlefield and makes you question what exactly we're seeing when we visit Amelie's beach. Exiting our private room, Sam connects to Lou as he normally would, and we get another memory from her. Cliff is speaking to the BB as he usually does, and he's interrupted by someone entering the room. Recognizing each other, and the man calling Cliff Captain. The man questions what Clifford is doing here in the BB research, and Cliff tells him that his wife is the still mother. The two hug, and the memory ends. Before we head out to Hartman's lab, Die Hartman gives us a call to tell us about the final knot after Hartman, a chiral relay placed on the edge of a massive ocean of tar before the western coast of the country. With the relay online, the network will span the entire continent up until Edge Knot City. So we head out to meet Hartman, beginning his episode. Hartman asks us to bring two things: Clifford's dog tag to study how it came from the beach, and Mama's body. She's been dead for a while now following her reunion with Lochna, but she's shown no signs of necrosis or even normal decomposition, which definitely makes her an interesting case to study. For this, Lochna delivers her body to us and says goodbye to her Ha, her other half. Reaching Hartman's lab, we're greeted by an automated message through his terminal outside. We connect him to the network and enter the building to find it completely empty. A timer appears in the lower left of the screen, time until resuscitation. Sam pokes around Hartman's lab while the time ticks down, and as it reaches 0, we find Hartman himself, lying in a chair in the middle of the room. As the timer approaches 0, Sam tries to speak to Hartman, who gets resuscitated right at the 0 mark. Hartman apologizes for the introduction, wishing he could have been a better host to greet Sam, and asks him to lay out Mama for the examination. He begins to catalog something through his cufflink, and Sam asks him what he just walked in on. Hartman tells us that every 21 minutes his heart completely stops and he dies, spending 3 minutes on the beach and coming back to life. 60 deaths and 60 resuscitations every day for a total of over 218,000 deaths. In that time, he searches the beach to find his deceased family. When his family passed, he became obsessed with traveling to the beach, with his beach being connected to others. Every day, every time he dies, he searches the beach for his family with the hope to find them so he can be with them when he dies, so that he's not alone in the afterlife. Checking Mama's body, Hartman searches her body bag for another piece of cargo that was stuck inside, a piece of an umbilical cord that refuses to necrotize as well, appearing like a BT tether, like a direct connection to the beach. Hartman moves on to theorizing about Clifford's beach, suggesting that all of the soldiers on the battlefield are pulled to his beach, creating that strand field due to their mutual emotions towards their death, feelings of regret and resentment fueled by Cliff's misery and hatred to command them. Sam asks if Higgs is controlling them, if Higgs is summoning Cliff and having him pursue Sam, and Hartman says that that's possible but unlikely. Our talk is interrupted with Hartman's heart stopping. He gets ready to go under for the next 3 minutes and asks Sam to stick around so they can continue once he's back. While we hang out in his office, Sam is able to look around and gain some extra likes from Hartman for being interested in his decor, but let's talk about Hartman for a bit while he does. I like Hartman a lot. He's a kind and compassionate member of the Bridges team and seems like a sweet guy that's making the best of his unfortunate cycle. But he's unfortunately the weakest part of Sam's journey to create new strands with new people. I don't think we really change Hartman or affect him at all, or vice versa. He's a stagnant character for this story, and our relationship with him doesn't deepen past this meeting. Sure, he gives Sam some likes for engaging with him in the conversation and asking appropriate questions, but that feels more like a silly gameplay gimmick than a deepening friendship. You can make the argument that Sam's interest interest in Hartman and willingness to mention his own loss is a sign that he's showing interest in making connections, and yeah, I'd agree, but we start and end there. Sam doesn't get to that point with him, he's already opened up from Fragile and Deadman. I'm gonna jump ahead a bit with Hartman's personal story. He'll be telling us this in just a moment, so it's not too far ahead, but his story with his wife and child aren't made any more meaningful for us either. From the top, Hartman was in emergency surgery for the heart condition he has, so he was fully out under anesthetics. Suddenly, the city he was in was hit by 2 simultaneous void outs, creating the crater lake we see outside of his lab. The hospital Hartman was in wasn't hit too badly by the damage, but the shockwave from the impact caused the power in the hospital to shut down, turning off his life support. While Hartman and everyone in the void out were on the beach, walking to their afterlife, the emergency facilities in the hospital kicked in and jump-started Hartman back to life, dragging him into the world of the living. Since then, Hartman has died and resuscitated himself 60 times a day to try and repeat that process and find his family on the beach. And while that is a heartbreaking story, I can't deny it, it is emotionally moving, it doesn't do anything past this, and all of that is established and happening before we even meet him. Hartman remains this character for the entirety of the game. We don't see any change in him like we did with Mama, or Deadman, or like we're seeing in Sam. So I don't really have anything to expand on for him. There's his story, that's it. And I don't really like that. He feels like a wasted character when compared to the rest of the main cast, people who evolve and change, and we can see they feel differently about Sam. It's just a strange exception, and a shame, which makes Hartman and his episode one of the weaker moments in the game for me. With Hartman's resuscitation, he tells us the story of how he lost his family that I just went over, and talks about how he got into the cycle he puts himself through. Sam wants to get on track with what Hartman wanted to ask him to do after the chiral connection was established, and Hartman fills us in on some experiments being conducted in the area. There are scientists studying fossils and specimens found inside the tar belts that have recently been unearthed with Death Stranding, with Amelie personally suggesting that studying what we can of past extinction events, like what killed the dinosaurs, can help us prevent any future extinction. So, we head out to deliver some equipment and medicine as needed to scientists out here in the region, and we learn a little bit more about what work they're doing to study previous extinctions. Firstly, we find that chiral matter has existed on Earth long before humanity has, which we can find proof of in the fault lines from earthquakes in the distant past, which further suggests that beaches may have appeared then too, like when chiralium started to pop up when the Death Stranding happened. Hartman thinks that beaches likely appeared for every extinction event, every explosion throughout the universe's history, so beaches and chiralium must have a deeper connection to the creation of everything. The next thing we uncover is the delivery of a 200 million year old ammonite, a creature from the Cretaceous period, which a porter said was still alive inside of a glacier. The porter also claimed that the ammonite appeared to have an umbilical cord, which could be connected to a beach from its era. Lastly, we deliver some of the region's tar to a biologist who wants to study the tar to uncover more about the BTs and the Death Stranding, with the tar originating from before the Death Stranding and likely having some connection and material overlap from the periods before. I think this chunk of deliveries are some of the biggest dumps of information we get regarding the past and the world of Death Stranding, and I find it all really interesting, at least what I can understand and make of it all. Chiralium, BTs, all of this stuff comes from a higher level of existence from what we know, and that just makes it all the more terrifying and fascinating. With all that science mumbo-jumbo out of the way, we head back to Hartman's lab to get a rundown on his research on Mama's body and her umbilical cord. Hartman asks Sam if he had a chiral reaction to meeting Mama, to which Sam says yes, her daughter was in the room. Hartman suggests that the reaction might have actually been from Mama herself. Her body seems to have been filled with chiral matter inside of the dead cells in her body. Hartman believes that her daughter, the BT, was more than just her daughter's soul, but Mama's soul as well, connected through the umbilical cord, meaning that since the accident, Mama wasn't technically alive with her soul trapped between both worlds. Hartman's explanation seems to be getting cut short by his upcoming heart failure, but he reveals that he falsified the timing to cut off Bridges, specifically Die Hartman, from monitoring this next part of the conversation. Hartman plays a message that Deadman left for us, with Deadman saying that the umbilical cord that we delivered wasn't actually Mama's, it was Bridget's, connected to her body up until right before her death. Bridget personally asked Deadman to take care of the cord, saying it was the key to unlocking the Death Stranding. The cord itself shows no sign of decomposing, and Deadman adds that it seems to be practically frozen in time. Strap in, it's about to get confusing. Hartman says that Deadman is exactly right. The cord and Mama's corpse are the exact same, full of chiralium and in a state between living and dead. So, Hartman has a theory. With the information we just gathered from the scientists in the area, he thinks that beaches appearing, along with chiralium, BTs, and any other phenomena, correspond exactly with extinction-level events, meaning our Death Stranding is just the most recent one to occur, with us being in the middle of the 6th extinction. Hartman shows Sam some bodies that were being studied before the Death Stranding and have recently been unarchived with the Chiral Network. A woolly mammoth and an early human, each thousands of years old and each with the same umbilical cord we have from Bridget. Hartman wonders if instead of these specimens being frozen in the earth like we thought before, what if their bodies had just stopped decaying because of chiralium, like Mama? Hartman continues that these umbilical cords have been seen on a dinosaur in the archives as well, along with the ammonite we brought in recently, suggesting that the umbilical cords were originally a means of connection to the other side, or a strand to the beach, and have only recently taken on the modern evolution as a cord used for childbirth. Hartman concludes his theory, coining it the extinction entity theory, that these organisms throughout time have each corresponded with the extinction event, marking them as extinction entities. He believes that EEs are connected to the beach and with their umbilical cord, or strand, they're able to trigger a Death Stranding somehow, which leads us to the thought that Bridget was an extinction entity as well. But now that she's dead, now what? Sam tells Hartman that Higgs called Amelie an extinction entity, adding that he said she has something beyond dooms. Hartman adds that if Bridget was an EE, then couldn't her daughter be one too? Hartman says that Higgs must believe that, so he's taken Amelie at Edgenot City to potentially use her to trigger the next extinction event. Hartman tells Sam that whatever the case may be with Amelie, it's important that Higgs doesn't have her, so he sends us off west to activate the chiral relay and continue to Edgenot City. A lot to take in there, and quite a bit that's changed what we know and understand about the story. Let's summarize and try to break down each point of what we just learned. 1. Bridget had a deeper connection to the other side than we know, a physical strand to the beach that takes the form of an umbilical cord. 2. That strand has been seen on many different bodies studied from different eras throughout history, with these bodies as the only remaining and intact specimens that have been observed from their era following extinction events, marking them as extinction entities. 3rd and final, Bridget herself must have been an extinction entity, but now with her gone, Amelie might be the next one and Higgs may know this too, wanting to use her to begin the next extinction. It really changes what we thought we knew about Bridget and Amelie. Bridget seemed to be normal otherwise, but now we know she has qualities shared with beings that brought on previous Death Strandings. What else could she have been capable of, and what about Amelie? She's still alive, and if she's an EE, how do we confront her on the next Death Stranding? These revelations and questions set us up for the final act of the game and give us the last push before a lot of questions and answers come our way in the last few episodes. I know I said it just a moment ago, but seriously, it's going to get complicated and confusing, and it's going to be moving pretty fast. I want to try and keep this in my control and keep it digestible, so I will stop and try to break things down a little further like I just did with Hartman's theories. So let's head west and continue to Edgenot City. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as walking across the country like it was the last time, since there's a massive ocean of tar separating the middle region and west coast of America. Reaching the chiral relay, Die Hartman tells us that we need to figure out a way across the tar belt, and I like this moment quite a bit, but I think it's hampered a little by some overzealous handholding. To cross the tar belt, we need to intentionally get caught by BTs to summon a greater BT, which brings on a phenomenon that unearths parts of the world that have been lost beneath the tar, which is something we'd know playing the game. This happens whenever we fight a BT boss, or if you get caught in regular gameplay. And again, I like this. It forces you to put yourself in a compromised position and engage with danger to reach your goal, while being a creative and in-world solution to our tar belt problem. But the game immediately sends you 2 emails. You receive these messages pretty regularly throughout the game, and these 2 emails not so subtly tell you exactly what to do. I don't remember if I figured this out on my first playthrough. It's been about 6 years, and I've played through the director's cut version 2 more times since then, so I'm unsure if this is an addition to help people who got stuck here or if this is the original flow for this moment, but I really dislike it. The sequence itself is still really cool, it's very cinematic, and the visuals here are more intense than usual. It's a great set piece, but I can't help but feel that I'm being played for a fool and can't be trusted to put the round peg in the round hole. The game lets you figure things out for yourself a lot. It's what makes the gameplay interesting. You might get a lot of over-explaining and extra exposition when mechanics and new features are added, but your use of those mechanics are usually left up to you, and your creativity pushes those features into being more than what the developers might have intended. This moment takes away from that a little bit too much for me not to mention it. So, we cross the tar belt. Towards the end of our run, we see Amelie waiting for Sam, and as we approach her, Sam gets pulled deep into the tar and Amelie steps away, letting him sink. Sam wakes up on the beach again and Amelie walks by, mimicking the opening of the game. Sam tries to follow her but is pulled under into the seam, waking up outside of Edgenot City. Higgs greets Sam on the shore and taunts us for bringing him and the Chiral Network all the way to the coast. Before he leaves, Higgs tells Sam he's not the only one wearing a mask, reminding us of Die Hardman and mentioning Amelie. He teases Sam with Amelie's Kipu and tells us that he wants to race to Amelie to give us a chance to get to her first, still playing with Sam. So it's time for Higgs's episode. Die Hardman calls to tell us that Amelie's exact location won't be exposed until we bring on Edgenot to the network, telling us that once we do, it'll be our last leg to save her before Higgs can catch her. Sam decides to rest up before the final stretch and he's woken up by Amelie projecting a message to him. Amelie tells her that her real name, before she took on the name Amelie, was Amerigo, after Amerigo Vespucci, the man who claimed to discover America but was found to be lying. Amelie tells Sam that she's still on the beach, her and Sam's beach, where she was born, adding that Higgs can't find her there. Amelie admits to Sam that she has been wearing a mask and lets us in on the truth. She is an extinction entity, an EE, but she doesn't want to be. She wants to restore the world, not destroy it, asking Sam to stop her and prevent the extinction event. She tells Sam she'll be waiting for him on the beach. On our way out of the private room, we get another memory from Lou, this time of Cliff struggling to breathe, seemingly in his final moments while someone tries to break into where he's hiding. Die Hardman tells us that for this final Chiral Network activation, we'll have to bring a special activation key. The Cupid alone won't do it. So we head off into the ruins of Edgenot, a broken city full of BTs. I really enjoy this trek. It's a little different since it's not our usual countryside expedition, instead having us go through the remnants of a city and use our tools and knowledge for that terrain. The gameplay isn't too different, but I think it's fun to apply this knowledge to a unique setting. We cross Edgenot with mostly no issue and reach the terminal in the center of the city, delivering the activation key, which seems to be a BB pod. Now, the Chiral Network is complete, and we need to find Amelie to bring her back east. Die Hardman tells us that she should be meeting us in the private room here in the terminal, so we head down to wait for her. As we lie down, Sam has a vision of the beach, being greeted by Higgs, calling himself Amelie, and showing us a massive version of Amelie walking in the ocean. Higgs takes off his mask, revealing himself to actually be Amelie and proclaiming herself as the extinction entity. Sam wakes up, disturbed by an alarm blaring in his room telling him that the chiral density in the area is rising and contact with an unidentified entity is imminent. Exiting the room, we see a massive BT approaching the area. Higgs appears behind Sam, thanking him for the Chiral Network and showing us that he has Amelie held captive inside of the BT. Higgs brags that he's bringing on the 6th extinction, a worse and bigger one than the previous 5 to wipe out the existence of everything and everyone. Higgs brings Amelie down from the BT to place his mask on her and seemingly subdue her into believing in Higgs' extinction event, calling it the last stranding. Higgs also lets us in that Amelie is the source of dooms, forcing on the nightmares and visions we've seen of the beach. Higgs tells Sam that he can't stop what's already started. The extinction has already begun, and we're just getting started. Higgs mounts his BT and tells Sam to get ready, bringing us into a boss fight. 3 boss fights, actually, broken up by some more dialogue between Amelie, Higgs, and Sam, but it's going to be a lot of fighting with Higgs for the next hour or so, and I have a lot to say about these fights, but again, we'll save that for later. For now, I will say that I think this sequence drags on a bit and ends up losing a bit of its intensity with how long the fights go on. With the giant BT down, we're able to reach Amelie, but she's still being held by Higgs. Higgs shoots at Sam, and Lou blocks some bullets for us using the Odra deck, so Higgs shoots her pod. Higgs unloads a few more rounds into Sam to force him to repatriate and buy himself some time to get to Amelie's beach for the grand finale. As we come back from the seam, we meet with Fragile to try and use her powers to jump to Amelie's beach. Fragile says that she can't bring him to the beach herself, but she can send him there alone because she's never been there. But his connection to Amelie can send him. She'll be right behind him though, since thanks to her and Sam's connection, she can always find him. Sam asks Fragile to look after Lou if he doesn't make it back and asks for something to eat, asking for a cryptobiote, giving us a silly but sweet tie-in to the progression of their relationship. Now Sam is even willing to ask Fragile for a snack and even willing to let her touch him. We jump to Amelie's beach and Higgs is ready and waiting for us, stringing Amelie up in a web of tar to keep her subdued while the extinction begins. Higgs says that the way he sees it, humanity only has a few 100,000 years left, so why not speed things up and give in to fate? Higgs tells us that if we fight him here, there's not going to be any repatriation to save us since we're on the beach. If either of us dies here, that'll be the end, presenting us with a good old-fashioned boss fight of stick versus rope, or gun versus strand. One last game over, which begins boss fight number 2 with Higgs, and again, I'll get into this later. As we take him down, Sam approaches Amelie in the web and Higgs prompts us with the 3rd and final fight, an up-close and personal fistfight to end things. As we defeat Higgs here, Sam knocks him unconscious and drags him out of the tar. Higgs taunts us again, saying we might have won the fight, but the extinction is still going and can't be stopped. Fragile approaches on the beach, threatening Higgs that she'll break him this time. Higgs tries to control Amelie again, but it seems like his connection to her and to Dooms may have been severed, with him unable to hurt her. Fragile knocks Higgs out again, and Sam ties him up for her to take him hostage. Amelie reunites with Sam, and Fragile gives back Lou. She offers to jump Amelie and Sam back east, and Amelie interrupts to say that we don't need her help anymore thanks to the Chiral Network, and now that Sam has Amelie. Sam chimes in to say he appreciates everything Fragile has done for us, and it seems like there's some tension from Amelie with him saying this. She seems to want Sam to rely on her and no one else. Fragile is understandably pretty hurt by this, and I think this suggests a romantic interest in Sam, with her saying he wouldn't want to settle for anything less than perfection. Sam tries to stop her from leaving so soon, but she's ready to go, not even looking back at him while she walks away. Amelie again tries to bring Sam's focus onto her and tells him that the extinction is already beginning, but she wants to try and stop it to reunite everyone. Sam confronts her, asking for the truth if everything she's done has been for her, for Bridget, or for her dream of America. Amelie reveals that she could have left Edge Knot and the beach a lot sooner, but Amelie and Die Hardman wanted to use Sam's desire to save her to motivate him to connect the Chiral Network, to manipulate him into finishing her work, with him saying,
"Great. So I'm Mario and you're Princess Peach."
Yeah, cheesy as hell, but these fourth wall breaks have been pieced throughout the game, so I kinda like it. Sam agrees with her that he didn't care without Amelie, that he doesn't have ties to anyone but her, but he's clearly hurt that she abused that relationship. Amelie asks him to trust her to answer any questions he has once they've gone home together, and she says that they'll have to travel across the beach to make it back east, with the line,
"Like Mario and Princess Peach."
That one I can excuse much less, but it's funny. I don't know. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom all the time. Amelie asks Sam to wait behind a bit while she looks ahead on the beach, with her climbing over a rock with Sam following close behind. On the other side, we see Die Hardman talking to Bridget at gunpoint, telling him he's using the gun to make things right and confronting her on making the world whole instead of fucking everything up. She tells him to shoot her, and when he does, the bullet seemingly passes through her. We see Bridget young and healthy like Amelie, and she tells Die Hardman that there's no atonement for what they've done. She gestures towards the ocean, and Cliff's soldiers begin to rise from the water, with Cliff right behind them. Die Hardman seems to recognize Cliff and falls to his knees at the sight of him, crying and trembling with the reunion. Cliff recognizes him as well, but can't seem to place the memory, with Die Hardman helping him remember him as John, connecting him to the memory we saw before of a man greeting Cliff in the hospital. Cliff approaches Bridget and tells him to give him back his BB, with her saying that he's looking in the wrong place and gesturing to Sam on the rock. Cliff begins to approach Sam and Amelie appears right behind him, pushing him off the rock and forcing him to repatriate. Sam wakes up in a private room, greeted by Deadman. Deadman says that Amelie sent Sam here and left a message for Bridges, saying she's going to finish what Bridget started. Sam says that he saw Bridget on the beach, and we did, but Deadman says that they don't have any data from his cufflink to back that up, reminding Sam that he cremated her body and adding that she couldn't have gone back to the beach after that, not even her own daughter's beach. Deadman asks Sam what else happened on the beach, and we fill him in, with Deadman adding that they haven't seen Die Hardman in a while, which makes sense if he's been brought to the beach. Deadman also thinks that now with Higgs dead, it seems that Cliff is the one directing the extinction event, with him holding Die Hardman and Amelie hostage on the beach. Sam asks if Fragile can send him back to the beach, but Deadman says that she can't, that a lot has happened since we were on the beach and now repatriated. Deadman says that the UCA needs to elect a new president, to really create the image of America becoming whole, and Sam tries to shoot down the idea with him not caring about the government and just wanting to save Amelie. Hartman chimes in and agrees, admitting that saving Amelie to be president lines up with the goal to stop the sixth extinction. The call is cut with the Chiral Network seemingly having a hiccup, and when we're reconnected, Fragile joins to tell us to get back east now that she's brought everyone back to the UCA headquarters. Unfortunately, Fragile is too weak from bringing everyone east to jump Sam as well, on top of a surge of chiral spikes from the network's presence across the country, making beaches unstable for Fragile's use of traveling through them, meaning we'll have to walk across the country again. Fragile says that once we're back, she'll send us to Amelie, regardless of the risk, with Hartman adding that thanks to the Dreamcatcher Sam wears and the Kipo that Amelie has, they have a special connection. Hartman believes that the Dreamcatcher itself represents something more to Amelie, as Dreamcatchers are a way to ward off nightmares. Maybe Amelie's intention with giving the necklace to Sam was a sign to tell him that he can stop her nightmare, the extinction event. Before we head out on that journey, we get another memory from Lou. This time we see Bridget and Die Hardman talking in front of the BB pod, with Bridget calling the BB special. Die Hardman asking if it's a BB candidate or a sacrifice. Bridget turns to the pod, revealing that she's wearing Die Hardman's mask, and corrects him, that the BB will be a foundation, or a bridge. With all of that, we begin Die Hardman's episode and we're heading off, back across the country to the east. I like this sequence a lot. It's a reflection of what you've done and contributed to the world to make your journey back across it what you made along the way. Keen-eyed viewers and people familiar with the game might have noticed that I haven't been contributing to the world very much. This playthrough was more a quick reminder for myself on the story to take notes for that and the gameplay more than anything. But I've done my time in the Porter trenches. Trust me, I've built all those highways, I've had zipline networks to be jealous of, and I've connected with more porters than I could count. So I know what the sequence is meant to be, and I think it's great. It's a fantastic way to let you soak in the work you put in and reap the rewards of that effort. It's sort of a subtle way to thank yourself for what you've done for others and what you contributed to make travel easier, all wrapped up with some heightened BT encounters and more aggressive mules and porters, and I think it's a great way to send off the final section of core gameplay here in Death Stranding. One final hurrah to show you all your hard work. While we're heading back across the country, we get a few calls from Deadman to make the journey a little less lonely and add some last-minute exposition. Like I said a while back, the story in Death Stranding is very front and back-ended, with a lot of information slowly dripping through the middle. I'm split on how I feel with this delivery for the story. I do like that it lets the middle of the game breathe and speak for itself with gameplay, but it also creates large chunks of information being thrown at the player for sometimes literal hours at a time. I've said it a few times now, but it's a lot of information to take in, constantly, but the beginning and end of the story have it the heaviest and make a retelling harder for me while I try to keep you in the loop without regurgitating everything that's said to keep this video from being longer than it already is. Again, there's a whole world to discover and learn about in this game, and I'm just trying to keep it all contained in a breathable way. All of that to say, we're in the home stretch, so I'm going to go full steam ahead on covering what's to come. Deadman calls us to fill us in on some research on Clifford Unger, the father. He reminds us that he was part of the US Army Special Forces and was originally part of the BB experiments, though he died before they were officially wrapped up and off the books. Deadman suggests that the visits to the beach are part of what Hartman described earlier, heightened realities fueled by his emotions of resentment, anger, and regret from his deployments and his feelings towards BB experiments, adding that he's driven by a need to reunite with BB. Deadman says he's going to keep digging to find out more about Cliff's ties to BBs and anything else that could help us understand him. In the next call, Deadman tells us what BBs were originally intended for, not the story we've been fed about Bridget continuing the tests for BBs to detect BTs, but that the BBs were actually created to be part of the core of the Chiral Network, to be integrated into knots as the source of the network. Deadman thinks that Amelie installed these BBs across the country during her expedition, which is why we only saw the final one for Etchnot City, and adds that he now believes that the Chiral Network was humanity's greatest creation, but also our guiltiest sin. He wants to keep digging to make a final judgment on the network though, and says he'll be in contact soon. And hey, he calls us soon. Deadman adds that he found Clifford offered his own child for BB experiments, but he was lied to and hidden from their true intentions with his child. He thinks that Cliff tried to take his BB back when he found out and was unsuccessful, leaving the BB in the hands of Bridges. Deadman believes that with his failed mission to save BB, he holds a deep resentment for Bridget and Bridges and is using Amelie to bring on the last Stranding as a punishment for what happened to him and his child. But Deadman is still unsure how exactly Cliff managed to get to the beach through Amelie, promising again to fill us in once he finds out. He then calls us to let us know that he couldn't find anything else about Cliff, that his entire life was redacted up until his donation and involvement with the BB experiments, which doesn't help him to tie Cliff to Bridget or Amelie for his jump to the beach, leading him to the idea that Cliff may have a connection to Die Hardman instead, which we already know. We saw that they recognized each other, and that connection to Die Hardman allowed Cliff to get to Amelie's beach when Die Hardman ended up there. Hartman joins the call to tell Sam about what effect the Chiral Network is having on beaches, with each beach converging into a massive single beach and seam that could potentially allow BTs to bleed into the world even more in this massive single connection to the living world. Hartman adds that his beach and Clifford's seem to be unaffected by this merger and suggests that they might be part of another form of beaches, a more advanced beach that controls all of the others, with his beach again allowing him to visit others and Cliff's beach being a convergence of other people's suffering. He believes that with this theory, Cliff might be aiming to take over Amelie's beach, the one beach to rule them all, with the extinction entity to trigger the last Stranding. As we approach Lake Knot City, the middle region's eastern coast, we get swept up in another supercell projected to Cliff's beach. As we travel, we get another memory from Lou, with Clifford speaking to the BB about his fears of becoming a father, his fear of having to be someone in his wife and child's life, no longer just a soldier anymore. He says that being a father turned out to not scare him at all, instead making him brave for BB and his wife. We see Die Hardman begging Cliff to hand over the BB pod, with Bridget behind him directing him to shoot Cliff. As we wake up on Cliff's beach, we're in Vietnam this time, again in the middle of a battle, and with our entrance here, we begin Clifford Unger's episode. Sam runs to the jungle to find Cliff, fighting him and subduing him like before. This time, as Cliff goes down, Sam approaches him calmly and lets Clifford reach out to Lou. Clifford whistles the song we've heard in BB Memories, and Cliff tells Lou that he and BB are getting out of here. Sam confronts him, asking if he is Clifford Unger and if he is the BB's father. Cliff begins whistling the tune again, with Sam finishing the song this time. Cliff says that he knows who Sam is, learning that his name is Sam Porter, but corrects him that he's Sam Bridges, Clifford's own bridge to the future. Clifford stands up to tell Sam that he's everyone's bridge to the future, that he's meant to bring people together, and presents him with his dog tags, tying them around Sam's neck. Sam offers Lou to Cliff again, and Cliff takes the pod but gives it back to embrace Sam. As Cliff brings his arm around Sam, he changes into the clothes we've seen him in throughout the BB Memories and fades away with a gunshot. We immediately cut to the memory we've seen before of Die Hardman visiting Cliff, this time telling him to take the BB and get out of the facility. Die Hardman says that if the president orders him to do something, he has to follow her, but he wants to be loyal to Cliff, the man he served under first and the man who saved his life time after time in battle. The memory ends and we're greeted by Deadman, who says that after the supercell took us, Sam woke up on the eastern side of the tar belt, closer to Capital Knot City. How convenient. Sam tells Deadman that he believes Cliff is Lou's father and shows Deadman that he has Cliff's tags, adding that he doesn't think Cliff wants to hurt anyone, but he just wants to talk about what happened to him. Deadman tells us that he dug up some new information with a message from Die Hardman that was recorded in the event of his death when he visited Amelie. Die Hardman believes the invitation to the beach was a trap, showing us a baby doll as his bridge to the beach and revealing his face, adding that it hides more than his identity and suggests that Amelie has been wearing a mask too, saying that she's a ghost that never really existed. He's never met Amelie in person, asking if anyone really has, and he talks about the Bridges 1 expedition. The expedition was split into two groups, Amelie and a small party separate from everyone else. Deadman corroborates this, saying that anyone in Amelie's party died when she was taken, so anyone that would have seen her in person was wiped out. Sam fights back against this, saying that he's touched her, but Deadman reminds him that he's only ever met her on the beach, never in person. Continuing Die Hardman's message, he says that Bridget told him that Amelie was born on the beach, with her Ka stuck on the beach and her Ha coming to the living world. The separation of her soul and body led to her being very sick as a child, but bursting with Doom's energy, with her only getting more powerful as she got older, allowing her to come and go from the beach as she wanted. As she aged, she only wanted to spend her time on the beach, with Bridget only allowing contact with Amelie through holograms and calls. Die Hardman swears complete loyalty to Bridget, but with the Chiral Network coming online, doubts grew in his mind, and in his position as the new director, he wanted to find out the truth about Amelie and Bridget with the restored archives. It turns out, Bridget was diagnosed with uterine cancer when she was very young, causing her to be unable to ever have children with the timeline of Amelie's birth, questioning where Amelie ever even came from. Die Hardman asks if we don't know if Amelie really exists, can we trust the EE theory whatsoever? He accepts her invitation to the beach to see the truth, bringing his gun full of hematic rounds, ammo made from Sam's blood, to connect Sam, Amelie, and Die Hardman all on the beach together, to allow them to connect again. Die Hardman has one last part of his message. He wants to reveal that he's not special. He doesn't have dooms or any powers that have kept him from dying. He says that he's terrified of death, and the only reason he's never died is because he always runs from danger. But this time he wants to face it, asking Bridges to have his back. Deadman says that after the message, he went straight to the beach. Sam recognizes the gun from when he saw Die Hardman on the beach, but the call gets cut short again with the chiral spikes in the area. Fragile comes in to fill Sam in on what she said to Higgs. She tells us that Higgs said that everything has been part of Amelie's plan. All of the terrorist voidouts, the initiation of the extinction event, it was all Amelie's doing, and Higgs was just a conduit to begin it. Fragile has reason to believe that. When they joined together to help deliver to the fractured country, she believes Higgs changed when he met Amelie, being drawn to her power to control BTs, and Amelie giving him the power to be her agent of extinction. Fragile looked inside Higgs's BB pod and found the same doll that Die Hardman had to use to go to the beach, adding to the belief that terrorists reviving BB tech is a lie, that they instead used BBs with the doll to connect to Amelie and her beach, not to the world of the dead like we do with BBs. Deadman adds that Cliff had these same dolls on his beach, saying that all three of the sightings of these dolls have been tied to people that were drawn in by the extinction entity, to Amelie's beach. Deadman begins to wonder who the extinction entity really is, Bridget or Amelie, and they tell Sam to get to the beach as soon soon as he can to find out. I don't know how many times I've said this, but this will be the last time. We're still ramping up on the information overload, and there's still more revelations to come with the story. Again, I think it's a bit excessive and can definitely begin to wear on a player that isn't so engaged with the world or story, but I feel that it's all interesting, and it's hard for me to stop and go constantly on every little detail or new piece of information. I think it's overbearing, yes, and the presentation through this video might feel like it's coming in at a mile a minute, but I do appreciate the mystery being unraveled here. We're slowly chipping away at who Amelie has been this entire time, what the Chiral Network was really for, if we can trust Die Hardman, who Clifford Unger really was, and all of that hopefully intrigues the player enough to keep following this confusing, spiraling thread. For the last journey across the eastern region, back to Capital Knot City, we'll be delivering cryptobiotes to Fragile so she has enough strength to help Sam make the jump to the beach. It's the same as the journey across the middle region, with a unique BT encounter at the end as a final boss fight, which I don't really like, but I'll bitch about that later. Reaching Capital Knot, we deliver the cryptobiotes to Fragile, who is unconscious from all her traveling across the beach. Everyone is gathered in Fragile's room, and Deadman tells us that Die Hardman was found outside of the hospital and is being treated in another room. Sam wakes Fragile up, offering her a cryptobiote, and she chastises him for needing her after all. Fragile seems very weak still, with Deadman saying that she's in no state to jump herself or Sam to the beach. Hartman joins in to say that he's come to a new conclusion, that with his research on beaches and his connection to other beaches, he believes that Amelie's beach really does exist on a higher level than what he knows, acting as the heart of everyone's beaches, in control of everything in the world of the living and the dead. Hartman adds that if Sam goes to her beach, she's in full control of the situation, only able to leave if she lets us. Sam asks if that happened with Fragile and Die Hardman, and they believe so. They think that she forced them out so she can talk to Sam alone. Sam asks if the only way to stop her from continuing the extinction event is to talk her down, and the room agrees, saying it's the only hope. Deadman adds that if he's forced to kill her, the last stranding might end, but it would strand Sam on the beach in her place. Sam gets ready for what he has to do and gives a speech to the gang, still believing that what they're doing is just delaying the inevitable. But now he's changed his mind. He thinks that if they have some time to give them something better, even just for a little bit, it'll be worth it, and he thanks Fragile for giving him that perspective with her story inspiring this change. Sam says that nothing will last forever, but it's up to us to keep it going as long as we can. Fragile pushes back on him, saying she thought he didn't believe in the mission, and he agrees, saying it was hard for him to try and believe in something when he didn't believe in himself. He was stuck in the past, stuck on what happened to his wife and child, but along the way, through the people we've helped, he's changed and started to believe in himself and the mission. Sam believes in himself and what he has to do now for everyone else's sake since they believed in him to connect the country. He gives the loot to Deadman again in case he doesn't make it back, and the group promises to take care of her. I absolutely love this speech from Sam. It's what I was talking about earlier, the secret core of the game and the real strands that the message of the game is about. Human connection and the people that you meet in life that can make you better. Sam has changed his outlook on life. He isn't seeking isolation anymore, and he wants to be around for the people that trust him. He's relying on his strands, and now he can see that he's helped other people for the better too. It's a powerful moment, and I think Norman Reedus delivers a great performance for Sam in this moment, and the rest of the game, but I think he really sells the slow build of hope in his voice throughout his message. It's great, and again, I just love this scene. With that message to his friends, Sam uses the Dreamcatcher, and with Fragile's help, he's able to jump to Amelie's beach one last time. When we wake up on the other side, we're presented with a memory of Sam's first visit to the beach we saw before, as a baby. Amelie takes Sam into her arms and sends him back to the world of the living, through the seam, beginning the next episode, Sam Strand. Sam wakes up on the beach, this time looking a lot worse for wear. The ocean is blood red, more whales and fish are washed ashore, and it doesn't look great. Sam travels across the beach to find Amelie and eventually gets tired, letting her come to him like she always does. Amelie approaches, singing London Bridge again, and hey, look at that, it has some meaning now. Clearly, Amelie has been singing the lullaby about the last stranding. She's been hinting at it the whole time, singing a lullaby to mock the end of the earth. Sam approaches Amelie, who says he must not know who she really is, turning around to reveal Die Hardman's mask on her face. Bridget appears behind Sam in her hospital bed again, and she lunges at Sam like she did in the opening, wearing the mask as well. She grabs Sam, telling him that she loves him, and Bridget and Amelie's voices converge to tell Sam that she'll be waiting for him on the beach. Amelie says that she's been waiting for Sam on the beach the entire time, waiting for him to stop her from starting the extinction event. Sam asks if he's speaking to Bridget, which she confirms and says that Amelie never existed, saying that she's both Amelie and Bridget, so I'll be referring to her as just Bridget to try and ease some confusion from here on. Bridget says that those names couldn't define her, that she was always meant to be an extinction entity. Bridget says that the last stranding has already begun, gun, forming a seam between her beach and everyone else's beaches, creating a surge of antimatter between the worlds and creating the final explosion. She gives Sam two options, the first to do nothing and to be with her in the end to watch the world burn. She says that there isn't much time left in the Earth, and again that they're all doomed to die eventually, so that choice would at least let them be together for the end. The second choice is relying on the people he's connected, the strands he's created, and taking a chance on humanity, cutting Bridget off from the other beaches to stop the last stranding from spreading. Sam asks if she can leave with him, but she says her beach is already too far gone and she can't leave it. Bridget doubles down on the decision to end things today, to let humanity end quickly and painlessly instead of suffering whatever might come next. She hands Die Hardman's gun to Sam, and tells him to make his decision, noticing the Dreamcatcher and saying he has the right to decide what happens to this nightmare. Sam is unsure of what to do, to stop Bridget or wait with her, and the choice is given to the player. Except it's not. It's a scripted sequence. I don't really like the illusion of choice here. I think the flow of the cutscene would have been fine if Sam made this final decision, and I don't think there's any real power in letting the player try and shoot Bridget just to give them an aha moment when the bullets don't harm her. I think this just drags the sequence out until you decide to follow her into the ocean and do the only thing available to you, which is Sam choosing to embrace Bridget in a hug and telling her that he'll be here for her, just like she always was for him. We get a memory again of Sam visiting the beach when he was younger, the memory of Sam getting the Dreamcatcher from Bridget, this time showing us more of that memory. Back then, Bridget told him that he'd have to be the one to stop her, that he'd be the only one capable. We cut back to Sam and Bridget, and she tells Sam that she knew the whole time that she would have to rely on him to make the decision because she hasn't lived a human life. She hadn't existed in real time to make a decision for humanity. She's had dreams and visions of the last stranding, which is shared and forced onto people with dooms to help them gain perspective of the extinction event, which is what we've seen through the beach when we visit her. Bridget thanks Sam for living a real life and making connections, creating strands, and allowing him to make the right decision for the future. Bridget throws the gun aside and tells Sam that if his connections in the world matter most, then she'll do what he thinks is right and cut herself off to stop the last stranding. She says that as the extinction entity, she knew she had to fulfill the extinction, and after holding it off for Bridget's entire physical life, she felt that she couldn't bear the extinction anymore and started it herself. But seeing how everyone connected, through the Chiral Network, and how Sam connected with others, she's had a change of heart. She says that with every extinction, life on Earth has rebelled and fought back, holding on to hope that whatever comes after is worth fighting for, and the sixth extinction is no different, saying that this extinction isn't just an ending, it's an opportunity for humanity to come together stronger than ever. She accepts her place as the sacrifice for Earth to continue and says goodbye to Sam, sending him into the scene. Sam wakes up on a new beach with Bridget's doll and his family photo with Bridget and his wife. Sam is forced to wander the beach for a while, occasionally getting brief conversations with Bridget to further explain her life and relationship with Sam, and I think this is one of the most controversial moments in the game. This is about 15 to 20 minutes of walking while the credits roll that's interrupted every few minutes with those conversations, and it's meant to be a way to show the passage of time while on the beach. It's boring. It's supposed to be boring. It's a reflection of Bridget's time on the beach. She's been stuck on the beach just like we are now, and it isn't very fun, is it? It's only interesting when Bridget appears or when Sam has appeared for her, so I actually really like this sequence. It's a unique cocktail of torture on the player and visual storytelling for the sake of the message behind it all to say that Bridget on the beach suffered a lot longer than we are now. So let's get into what Bridget tells us during her visits in this sequence. It's gonna answer a lot of questions and again, feel like a lot of information. First, Bridget tells us about the dreams she's had and imposed on Sam and others with dooms. Her dreams and visions of the world ending, the extinction event, that she shared to show people with dooms what was coming and how they'd respond, namely how Sam would respond, I think. With those dreams, she always knew she'd be the one to bring on the last stranding. Next, she tells Sam about when her Ka and Ha separated, when she had her first operation for her uterine cancer. During the operation, she felt herself wake up on the beach, but shortly felt herself wake up again, splitting between the beach and the world of the living. Her Ha kept aging, but her Ka remained the same, giving her the idea to create the lie of Amelie as her daughter that people occasionally saw on the beach. She also explains the literal meaning behind the name Amelie. Am being French for soul, and lie being a lie, together being a soul that's a lie. In her time on the beach, Bridget realized that beaches were connected to the dead, wanting to try and use the history of the beach to connect everyone that's died across history to try and use what happened to them to prevent the extinction event. Until the first Void Out, the Death Stranding. She thought the creation of the Chiral Network would help preserve the research on previous life on Earth, beginning with bridge babies as a conduit between worlds. Before Bridget could continue and complete her chiral network and her research on previous extinctions, her Ha began to die due to her fight with cancer, seeing this as a punishment from the beach for her fight against the extinction event, which led Bridget into asking Sam to complete the chiral network, unearthing the previously lost information and data that we've seen throughout the game. Bridget again believes that extinctions are a big push for life to fight and continue, stronger and together, finishing the thought that the extinction is an opportunity. Bridget tells Sam that she was the one who sent him to the beach as a baby, the one that killed him, but on the beach, she knew it was a mistake and brought him back to life, creating the first repatriate, which upset the balance between life and death. In that moment, she accidentally created dooms as well, bringing in others to her visions of the extinction event. Soon after, the Death Stranding happened, with BTs using Bridget's beach as a connection to the world of the living, creating more voidouts and stranding the world. After the Death Stranding and after suffering her nightmares of the extinction for so long, she triggered the extinction like she told us before, until she had a dream different from her visions, a vision of Sam choosing a future where humanity lives on in hope and asks her to hold back the extinction, the future that we started down today, again asking her to believe that the extinction could be an opportunity. That's the end of Bridget on the beach, and we're brought into the full credits again, asked to walk down the beach as they roll. I like this sequence again for what I said earlier, the unique way it uses the beach to convey Bridget's experience, but I also like that the mystery of Bridget and Amelie is being fully exposed to us. It's been weird and unclear for the last 30 or so hours, so it's nice to have this resolution with her, and we finally get to see finality in what she lets Sam decide. She always saw this outcome, and she's happy with it. It's what she would have wanted too, again relying on the hope for the future. We're still not done, not even close, as Bridget reaches out one more time to tell Sam that she's the one that brought Cliff back to Sam to the beach, to show Sam that he was never abandoned and unwanted as a child. Suddenly, we see 5 figures appear above the beach, again with BT handprints leading us to the water. I think these 5 figures represent 2 things. On Bridget's beach, I think they're the 5 extinction entities before her, looming over her as a reminder for what she is. For Sam's beach, I think Bridget shows us that the figures represent Sam's strands in the real world, his connection to his new friends. As we look out to the figures, we hear the Bridges team calling out to Sam until Deadman is able to pull Sam back into the seam, allowing him to repatriate back to the land of the living. We cut to Die Hardman delivering a speech as the new president of the UCA, celebrating the new birth of the nation and completion of the chiral network. Die Hardman swears to let people in and allow true connections, unmasking himself and ushering in a new America that can allow everyone to be themselves to each other. Die Hardman speaks on the idea to endure. No matter what might come in the future, that hope can bring everyone together stronger to survive. Die Hardman diverts the speech and the room's attention to Sam and the player, thanking us for the effort of bringing everyone together, but Sam isn't listening. He's uninterested in the speech and wants to move on, leaving the room. Deadman follows Sam out and wants to explain to him how they found him on the beach to bring him back. Hartman and Mama's Ka search the beaches for a month to try and find where Sam might have been, with no results. Until Die Hardman reminded them of the revolver, leading them to a connection to Sam's beach where he still had the revolver, stating it as the stick that became the rope, the gun becoming the representation of their strand. Deadman has some more information too, finally wrapping up the mystery of Clifford Unger. Deadman tells us that Clifford was killed during the BB experiments by a man named John, obviously being Die Hardman, who took on the persona of Die Hardman after killing Cliff and hid under the mask ever since. Deadman ends by saying he still doesn't trust Die Hardman, but he'll work with him as long as they need to, as Die Hardman approaches Sam. Die Hardman tells Sam the truth, telling him he did in fact kill Cliff, saying he did it for Bridget because he was loyal to her. He deeply regretted the decision with his loyalty to Cliff for saving his life throughout battles countless times, forcing an internal struggle with his loyalties. Die Hardman believed that Cliff came back from the beach to kill him, to make things even, but believes that when Cliff saw what Die Hardman was doing and what he does for America's sake, he forgave him, even bringing him back from the beach to live on as America's president. Sam shuts that idea down quick, telling him that America shouldn't be ruled by someone that believes they can't die like he does, and that the cost of living your life fuels your humanity and your decisions, giving the gun back to Die Hardman, who seems to take his message well and accepts what he said about not needing to avoid death. I really enjoy this confrontation with Die Hardman and Sam. It's such a raw and emotional breakdown from Die Hardman and performed so well by Tommy Earl Jenkins. This might be one of the most human and real-looking scenes I've ever seen in a game. I honestly believe it's a watershed moment for tech and rendering in games. It's easily the most lifelike character I've ever seen. And it's a great moment for Sam too. He's learned from Bridget about what living really means and throws it at Die Hardman to show him that he's wrong, showing us that Sam is learning and changing through this journey, as he likely saw things similarly to Die Hardman with with his ability to repatriate. It's an important turning point for Die Hardman and a great point to show us that Sam is internalizing what Bridget wanted to teach him. Sam leaves the office, greeted by Deadman and Lou, but Lou hasn't been responsive since Sam was on the beach. Deadman says that the order to decommission Lou and her pod has been posted, and it's expected that Sam will follow the order. He reminds us that we could try taking Lou out of the pod, but there's a 70% chance of death when BBs are removed from their pods, on top of that disobeying the executive order. As Sam leaves, Deadman takes Sam's cufflink offline and tells him he can take it off if he wants to be off the grid away from the UCA, with them being unable to track him if he so wishes. Sam begins to leave again, but he comes back to give Deadman a hug, thanking him for all the help. What a sweetheart. Fragile is waiting for Sam outside as well, greeting him and filling us in that her company has been contracted as the first official delivery company for the UCA. Sam congratulates her on the gig and starts to head out, but Fragile wants to tell him one last thing, what happened between her and Higgs on the beach. She says that she couldn't bring herself to shoot him, so she let him choose, death right there or being stranded on the beach. Fragile offers Sam a job again with her company, and he turns it down, saying that he believes there isn't a point in continuing, which I really don't like. I feel like this needlessly contradicts what he just told Deadman. Sam doubles down again, saying that he feels the exact same as he did when he met her in the cave in the opening of the game, and she pushes back on that, saying that he's learned to touch people and let them in, but Sam says that everything he touches, he loses. Sam mounts Lou's pod to his suit, telling her they've got one last delivery ahead of them, beginning the next episode for Lou. The walk to the incinerator is accompanied by music like many moments in the game, but this time with an original song, BB's theme, performed by Jenny Plant and Ludwig Forsell, the game's composer. I love this moment and the song. It's such a shot to the heart for the sequence, and even watching it back just to write the script and edit the video, it gets me a little teary-eyed. The song itself is a continuation of the song Cliff has been singing to his BB in the memories, and it's just such a sweet and sentimental moment. It's a fantastic way to say goodbye to Lou after our journey together. Reaching the incinerator, Sam connects to Lou's pod to try connection one more time, thanking her for her help. With the connection, another memory comes through, a continuation of one we saw earlier, with Bridget and Die Hardman speaking about the BB being the foundation for their future. And this time, the memories play out in full, in one, kinda two, continuous cutscenes in proper chronological order for us to get the full picture. So, let's take it from the top. We start with Cliff visiting the BB, giving him an astronaut figure and attaching it to the pod, telling the BB they'll get better soon so they can leave. Die Hardman, or John, enters the room and the two recognize each other, embracing one another, and Die Hardman says that he didn't realize he was the father for the experiment. We cut to Cliff confronting Bridget on her telling him that they do everything they can to save his child, and Bridget tells him that they can't release his child. Cliff calls her out on wearing a mask to hide her face and to lie to him, and she leaves the room, saying lies are a necessity for running the country. Die Hardman enters the room later, disabling the surveillance in the room and telling Cliff to take the BB out and run. He adds that he can't help Cliff's wife, Lisa, and tells Cliff that while he's loyal to Bridget, he was loyal to Cliff first, so he doesn't feel right letting Bridget do these tests to Cliff's family. Die Hardman explains why he's still loyal to him, with Die Hardman telling him that Cliff saved his life numerous times in war, so this is just his chance to repay his debt. Die Hardman adds that this is the last chance that Cliff will have to take BB as he's being moved to a new facility and taken away tomorrow. He hands Cliff a list of instructions and tells him to act fast. Clifford enters the room again a little later, greeting Die Hardman, who's waiting for him with a gun, the revolver Die Hardman brought and used on the beach. Die Hardman explains that he can falsify Lisa's life support for a moment, but he can't disable it outright because it'll trigger an alarm, asking Cliff to execute his wife to stop the tests on her brain-dead body. Die Hardman tells Cliff not to hesitate since this will be his only chance at this, and Cliff understands what he has to do to get BB. He wraps the barrel of the revolver with a sheet, grabs a pillow, and apologizes to Lisa for what's happened to her, promising her to take care of their son. Cliff kisses Lisa one more time and then presses the pillow and gun to her head to quietly end her suffering. Cliff begins to detach BB from his test chamber, taking the pod in his hands and running out of the room. We get a quick shot from BB's point of view of Cliff running out of the room, and the memory ends with Sam detaching from the pod when he realizes Lou isn't activating. I really do like how these memories have been presented throughout the game as a strange offshoot from the main story and intrigue of our main cast, and seeing them play out in motion with more clarity is a very satisfying payoff to me. This isn't the end of Cliff's stories yet, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. With Lou seemingly not coming back, Sam continues on to the incinerator. Deadman telling Sam that he can remove the cufflink and take Lou out of her pod plays in Sam's mind, and he's clearly contemplating what to do. He removes the cufflink and places Lou in the chamber for incineration, until he removes the pod and rethinks the decision, connecting with Lou again and bringing on the next set of memories. As we enter the memory, we're forced to repatriate into the BB pod to begin the sequence, floating through the halls of the Bridges facility until we find Cliff. Catching up with him, he's running through the hall and avoiding security, trying to find his way out of the building without being spotted. He reaches an elevator, but the door is locked. More lab personnel begin to approach him and an alarm goes off, alerting nearby guards. They take aim at Cliff and he points his gun at the BB pod to buy himself some time. As he begins the run, the security team fires a round into Cliff's back, with Die Hardman calling them off to follow Cliff himself. As he reaches Cliff, he's seated on the floor and bleeding out. Die Hardman apologizes to him for how this turned out, with more security forces entering the hall. Cliff takes Die Hardman as a shield to get an opportunity to run again, and he runs deeper into the facility. We then see Cliff run back into Lisa's room, with Sam standing in the room, physicalized in the memory. Cliff locks himself in the room by destroying the security panel and sitting on the floor to talk to BB, clearly weak and losing a lot of blood. He crawls to Lisa's bed and apologizes to her for not being able to help their son. Outside of the room, security begins to break the door down, with Die Hardman trying to call them off. Bridget approaches and tells them to continue breaching the room, and Cliff begins to sing BB's theme to his son, pointing the gun at the door to get ready for the security team. The security personnel shoot Cliff, and in his last words he speaks to his son, telling him again what we heard before, that he was scared to become a father, but later realized that being a father made him more brave than ever. Die Hardman enters the room to speak to Cliff again, and Bridget enters the room to take the pod. When she activates the pod, she sees that the BB is no longer inside, and Cliff shows that he has BB in his arms. Bridget orders Die Hardman to shoot Cliff, and he hesitates, struggling with the order and begging Cliff to give the BB to Bridges. The memory seems to freeze, and Cliff begins to speak to Sam directly. He tells Sam that his name isn't Sam Porter, it's Sam Bridges, being Cliff's bridge to the future. Cliff by himself was exactly what his name is, a cliff with no end and no way forward. He says that as a Cliff, he was only ever good at dividing people and staying away from them. Clifford struggles to stand with his BB in his arms and tells Sam that he's different from Cliff. He's a bridge to everyone's future to bring people together. He asks Sam to stand up and hands him the BB, with Sam asking if the BB is actually him as an infant. Cliff nods, giving Sam his dog tags and hugging him. As Clifford embraces Sam, we hear 2 gunshots and see Bridget pulling the trigger on Die Hardman's gun, killing Sam and Cliff in the process. We follow Sam through the scene for the very first time, washing up on Bridget's beach where she brings him back to life. As Sam wakes up and is soothed by Bridget on the beach, we see Cliff in the water watching over him. Bridget sends Sam back through the seam, creating the first repatriate. Sam, in the memory, wakes up inside of the BB pod, watching Bridget and Die Hardman greet him back into the world. Die Hardman says that he can't operate as a BB anymore since he's severed his tie to the world of the dead since he's come back to life, and Bridget says that she wants him out of the pod and takes Sam on as her adopted son. I know I just said it, but again, these memories are great, and getting this final conclusion and reveal pieced together is a fantastic and powerful moment. Sam being Cliff's son is kind of apparent throughout the whole game if you can think for longer than 10 seconds about some of his actions after we fight him, but still, I like seeing the full sequence in motion and getting all of the context. I think Cliff's speech about his and Sam's name is good too, and I like the parallel of Cliff and Sam as characters, past the Cliff and Bridge name. Cliff represents the stick, the tool to keep everyone away. He's a soldier that fought in wars and killed to divide people, while Sam is the rope. He brought people together and connected them, the tool to bring everyone closer. I think as 2 characters, they're fantastic together, and I love that Sam gets closure on his real father, and the player gets closure with the mystery of Cliff, both of which I think are very satisfying and emotional. But now we're back in real time, and we see that Sam has followed through on removing Lou from her pod. Lou isn't responsive, and Sam is struggling with trying to resuscitate her, performing CPR, trying to warm her body, and desperately calling out to her. It's rough, it really tugs on the heartstrings, and it's still hard to watch. Again, Norman Reedus sells this moment and makes it a heartbreaking scene. As Sam hugs Lou, he begins to cry until she finally wakes up, holding a quipu in her hands. Sam and Lou walk out of the facility into the rain as it begins to lighten up. He looks out to the horizon and a normal rainbow appears around him. No longer a sign of timefall, just normal rain. The sun shines on their faces and the real credits begin. After the credits, we get one final shot of Sam resting his hand on his family photo, with Lou reaching up to hold his hand and him calling her Louise. And that is the end of Death Stranding. What a long ride it's been. I love the narrative in this game because of its core message of hope and the importance of friendship and connections in your life. I think it's a wonderful message to have in such a bleak and horrific game that shines through in the entire story and all of its characters. As I've said a few times now, I think the story being very heavily featured in the beginning and end of the game is a bit of a double-edged sword. It lets the middle of the game, the largest chunk of the game, focus on the gameplay, letting you experience the journey Sam has across the United States. But that also comes at the cost of the opening and ending of the game being very exposition and information heavy, with, again, literal hours of new information and context being thrown at you constantly in those moments. Throughout the game though, there are still fantastic character stories and true growth from our protagonist Sam, all wrapped up in the mystery and intrigue of the world. While I have my issues with how the beginning and end of the game are paced, I still really love the narrative here because it's carried so well by its main themes and cast of strong characters. I think Death Stranding manages to be one of the most human games I've ever played, despite the freaky monsters and near-future sci-fi setting, with characters that are flawed and irrational but with most learning to grow and become better. I do also want to talk about a point that a lot of people have against the presentation of the story to the player, that being that Sam is mostly talked to rather than engaging in conversation with some characters. I would agree that happens most of the time, but when Sam does talk, he does have a dialogue and a distinct personality. I think the goal for Sam being talked to most of the time is for Sam to be an analog for the player. He's getting talked to because we're getting talked to and learning information. A lot of games handle main characters this way. Some go as far as having entirely mute protagonists for this reason specifically, but I've seen a strong discourse around Hideo Kojima and his games for this gripe. It's a talking point against the Metal Gear games as well. I don't think it's outwardly bad in this game, or even as a trope in any game, and I think that Death Stranding manages to keep Sam as a strong and established character, while still pulling off the stand-in role for the player, but I do understand the issue some people have with this framing. I just don't necessarily agree in this game's case. And now, after 66 pages of this script, I can finally talk about the gameplay in a video game. Playing Death Stranding is just as much about the story as it is actually playing the game, again bringing you a very unique and deep experience through in-depth mechanics that slowly teach you how to become the great deliverer. I've never played a game like Death Stranding. There's specific elements that I could trace to other titles, but Death Stranding combines different genres and systems to create a new culmination of gameplay that I absolutely love. Let's start with something simple that you'll be faced with when starting a new game, your choice of difficulty modes. There's 5 options ranging from very easy to very hard. I played through the game for this video on very hard, which I've done for my previous playthroughs as well, but I do think very hard was added for the director's cut. I would not recommend playing on this difficulty. As the difficulty rises, Sam's health and stamina decreases faster under duress, enemies become more aggressive and persistent and have larger health pools. That last part being what really makes very hard difficulty not worth your time. Boss fights on very hard drag on, creating extended sequences of fighting the same enemy for far too long, and it really brings down the entire experience. I think very hard offers you additional cargo drops from enemies when you knock them out, which is fine, but I don't think it's a good enough incentive against the boss fights that can go on forever. I'd recommend playing the game on hard. I think it's a safe balance of difficulty and keeps enemies in a manageable state for boss fights and basic encounters. You really aren't missing much with the additional cargo drops, so I think this is the premier way to play through Death Stranding, despite me almost exclusively playing the game on very hard. And since I've mentioned combat, let's start there along with some of the enemies and equipment you'll find across the country. Combat isn't the core of the game. The deliveries and cargo are the real meat and potatoes here, but I want to save that for its own dedicated section a little later. Combat in Death Stranding comes in 2 forms, fighting against human enemies and trying your luck against BTs, the black tar-like creatures you'll encounter throughout the game. Fighting against humans doesn't have as much mechanically to delve into, so let's start with that. You'll be fighting goons from 2 factions, Mules and the Homo Demons. They're mostly identical in how they function, but for the sake of the narrative, the Demons are aggressive and want to kill you, while the Mules just want to steal your cargo. When going against either group, you have a surprising variety of approaches for you to proceed. First up, you can avoid them. That sounds obvious, but it's a little trickier than you'd think. Throughout the game world, the Mules and Demons have camps, and when you come near them, they send a tracking ping out from their camp to detect any movement, or to detect cargo in the Mule's case. When the ping goes out, your position is marked and enemies will begin to head to that location. If you want to successfully avoid them, your best bet is to steer clear of their territory, which makes your life a little more difficult as they'll place themselves along the shortest routes between points of interest, so avoiding them outright will bring on some extra travel time. Or, with an upgrade to your Odra deck, a tool used by Sam and his BB for a variety of functions, you can nullify their ping and continue through their territory under the radar. I like this upgrade a lot, but the timing for the nullification ping was always difficult for me to nail down. I probably pulled it off successfully twice in this playthrough, but I already knew I was bad with it, so I didn't really try to use it very much. So, if you're like me and you don't want to go down a big detour to avoid some conflict, and you suck at cancelling out the tracking pings, what else do you have? Well, you could try to get that tracking nullification down a little better and sneak into their camps. You can take out enemies in stealth using some rope that Sam carries on his suit, binding enemies and allowing you to knock them unconscious, without being detected. Stealth works on basic line of sight and sound detection, but it's also a little more engaging than most modern titles. I wonder why. Sorry, got lost there for a second. Enemies will try to track you down to your last known location, even changing to a patrol route if they don't find you, and you're able to enter back into sneaking if you can get away. It isn't the most in-depth stealth system you'll ever see, but again, it's surprisingly active. Like, you can try to make an effort to use stealth and it will meet you on that level, you know? If sneaking isn't your thing, then you can always start punching people. Sam has a basic 3-hit combo, a left and right hook followed by a kick which staggers enemies and allows you to get away or queue up your next move. The director's cut of the game, which I played through for this video, adds a few more moves to his arsenal, like a drop kick for massive knockout damage, a knee strike for a quick move from sprinting, and a body slam to knock enemies around. I like the movement Sam has in combat, and it's definitely helped a lot by the additions from the director's cut. Melee in Death Stranding is basic, you're not really supposed to be fighting too heavily, so I guess that makes sense, but when you get aggressive, it's nice to have options, and the options here make melee combat fast and exciting with a surprisingly quick moveset. And if you're getting up close and personal, you can also bolster your melee hits by holding pieces of cargo in your hands. If you perform your melee combos while holding a package, Sam will swing the package in his fist, knocking around whatever poor soul you decided to bludgeon. This is super effective in close quarters combat, guaranteeing knockouts if you can land just a few hits. Unfortunately, swinging with cargo in your hand also damages the item quite a bit, so it's not really something I'd recommend if you want to keep and use whatever you're deciding to wield. You can also throw cargo containers if you let go of the input to hold the package while swinging your arm, launching the box at someone's head for huge damage towards knocking them unconscious, which also breaks the box on impact. Sam also throws boxes harder if he uses his right arm, which is just a fun detail. Lastly, if you're in punching range, you can also parry melee attacks using that rope that Sam carries, which is a fun way to approach camps aggressively and not break any cargo against someone's skull. I do think the parry window is a bit generous. The game even slows down a bit to let you get the input off, but that's fine. I'm not expecting Sekiro level parry timing to get a knockout in this game. As a whole, the melee systems in the game really surprised me. It's a game about delivering boxes and packages, but you can have action-fueled engagements with you knocking everyone out like some kind of FedEx vigilante. It's really fun, and again, very fast-paced with Sam's movement and his moveset. You might have noticed that I keep saying we're knocking people out, and that's intentional. All combat against human enemies in the game should be approached non-lethally. In the world of Death Stranding, when someone dies, their body becomes one of those tar monsters, the BTs, which when coming into contact with a living human can cause a nuclear-level explosion. And that's no joke for you. If you kill someone and leave their body unattended too long, you'll destroy part of the world, even potentially leading to a game over and forcing you to reload a save if that explosion damages anything important to the narrative. I like this a lot. It forces you to stick to the themes of Death Stranding to not bring any more violence into the world, or at least any more death. And with such harsh consequences and tedious work to clean up if you do pursue lethal kills, I think it can trick you into avoiding killing enemies outright. But hey, just because we can't kill these guys doesn't mean we can't have some fun. We're given a lot of tools to make sure non-lethal combat is more exciting than just punching guys for 40 hours. Like the Mazer gun, added in the director's cut, it's a short-range electric stun gun that zaps enemies until they fall unconscious, working on a small battery that lets you take out more than enough mules to get them out of your hair. Or the bola gun, my personal favorite. It's a gun that shoots bolas, who could have seen that one coming. If you target an enemy, they'll be tied up and restricted until you come along to knock them out or another enemy frees them. You can take it a step further and constrict their heads with a gunshot, knocking them out instantly. Or you can throw some stun grenades, electric-filled smoke bombs that can tase anyone that touches a cloud, also available in a remote detonated form. I love these options. They're in-universe ways to give us some fun variety in ranged combat, not just a gun to shoot, but something that you have to use creatively. And if you just want a gun, there's plenty of them, even letting you stick to your non-lethal playstyle, like an assault rifle loaded with rubber bullets or a shotgun filled with beanbags. I like these options too. They scratch that traditional third-person shooter itch, and they fit thematically in Sam's mission not to kill anybody. And the shooting in the game feels great. It's quick and responsive and allows full freedom of control with the camera to allow you to maneuver your firing wherever you need it. Guns have a lot of punch and weight to their firing too, with dense recoil and consideration for how each gun handles. But fuck it, you just want to shoot people. You don't care about the consequences. You couldn't care less about the rope and the stick or whatever the hell the game keeps trying to tell you. Well, lucky you. You can also just mow people down if you want. There's lethal options for all of the guns and then some. You unlock bombs, grenade launchers, quadruple rocket launcher, and they're readily available for you to take out on the road. The game warns you a lot about using these options, but never tells you not to or even stops you from trying. You just have to accept the consequences that come with killing somebody. Again, a potential nuclear detonation. I like that the option is here, but obviously it's just a consideration for freedom of choice, potentially even just a way for the game to hammer in the nail that you shouldn't be killing anybody, because hey, look what happens when you do. Better clean up that mess. It's not necessarily difficult to deal with bodies if you decide to start killing people, it's just tedious. And I think that's all it's meant to be. The tedium is here to make you rethink your choices. On top of all of that action you can get from playing the main game and traveling across America America, you can also access the firing range at any available private room for Sam in the world. These are short drills available for each piece of equipment in the game to let you familiarize yourself with them or test your expertise with the combat in the game. I like the firing range. It's an addition from the director's cut and a pretty good one at that. These challenges are fun and short, and that's all they need to be. They teach you how to use a tool and grade you on your performance if you're chasing that 100% completion of the game. Combat against human enemies is really fun in Death Stranding, and I think it's strangely a piece of the game that gets omitted from people's minds when criticizing the game, again, calling it a walking simulator or something. There's a lot of action in Death Stranding. It's around every corner, and not just with these guys, but with the BTs as well. Fighting mules and demons is fast, energetic, and fun, again thanks to Sam's strangely quick movement and efficient moveset, along with creative tools to experiment with in taking out enemies in fun ways. There's a lot more equipment for you to tackle fights with to use in those creative solutions too, a bunch that I didn't mention, like the power gloves letting you punch even harder or throw cargo further, or the slip rounds in the grenade launcher to create a patch of oil for enemies to slip on. There's a lot of stuff to play with and plenty of opportunities for you to use them. And for the other half of combat, we have fights against BTs, again those tar-like monsters we see throughout the game. You don't actually fight most of them you're either trying to avoid or take them out before they notice you, which again you have a good amount of options to do so with. First up, again, you can avoid BTs. For the most part, they're all over the place and can appear when timefall, or rain, appears in the world, which travels in real time with actual weather patterns, so you'll probably run into them eventually, even if you're trying to avoid BT-heavy areas. If you find yourself surrounded by BTs, you've got some options before they catch you. You can sneak away from them and through their crowds by moving slowly and holding your breath. Making even the slightest sound attracts them to you, so you have to be on top of your movements to make sure you don't set one off. Sam's breath gauge is based around his stamina, a resource that depletes over time through physical actions, so you'll need to be mindful of how long you can hold your breath while sneaking. You can detect BTs to help you avoid them or sneak past them with the help of your BB, an infant strapped to your chest in an incubation pod. The BB uses your Odra deck to show Sam faint outlines of BTs to help you pinpoint where they are. Without the BB, you are on your own with the handprints that BTs leave as they approach you. Later in the game, you unlock the ability to detach BTs from the world of the living, effectively giving you a stealth takedown to kill them. If you're feeling so bold, you can sneak right up to a BT through the methods I mentioned above and take your cufflink out to swipe at their cords. This instantly kills them and frees up a small area in the BT zone, so you're not just in the clear with one kill, but it is a little safer. I like this a lot. It really feels like these creatures have an oppressive presence in the world. You can't even breathe around them, or they get set off and take you away or even kill you. It always feels like you're walking on thin ice around them. The slightest slip up will send you right into their hands, so you really need to be on your best behavior if you want to avoid any BT conflict. But eventually, you can start hunting BTs like it's deer season. Along with the cufflink, you get access to hematic weapons laced with Sam's blood to harm the BTs and even outright kill them if they're exposed to his blood too much. There's a whole bunch of hematic weapons. All of the lethal options for humans are here with hematic rounds. You can fire rockets at them, mow them down with a machine gun, throw grenades at them, whatever you want. With hematic weapons though, you are using Sam's actual blood, pumping it straight from his body or from previously extracted blood bags. I really like this. Without blood bags, you're forced to use your own health bar against enemies for this aggressive play style, like some kind of blood mage fueling his magic with his own life. Blood bags give you additional pools to load your guns from and act as healing for Sam's blood supply in his body, so it's usually good to travel with at least a few of them at all times. But the use of Sam's blood is really cool to me and creates a deeper consideration for how you approach BTs, again, passively by avoiding them, or aggressively by taking your blood into your own hands to fight them head on while bleeding yourself dry. Oh, and you can pee on them. Not joking. You can even throw grenades with your other waste at them. Urine grenades act as a stun, I'd probably be stunned by that too, and feces grenades are like an attractor. Gross, but it's a fun addition if nothing else. Overall, I am split on the inclusion to fight back against BTs for two reasons. I like the horror and tension of the world without a way to defend yourself, but I also really like the progression of power and the switch up with you being on top of most BT encounters if you have the right weapons. The horror of BTs kind of fade away as you get these weapons and realize how easily you can start pushing them around, which really is a shame. I do love the opening hours of the game and how they still make me feel with BT gameplay, but again, it gets really fun to end up being the hunter in these situations. While we're out here, there's a couple of different BT types for you to avoid or fight. The first and most common are gazers. They appear as humanoid creatures floating above the ground with tethers tying them to the earth. They come in a couple different sizes and colors, with the average ones being black and normal sized, giant ones, red ones, and gold ones, and maybe a few more that I've missed, but I think that's it. These are the ones that give you the core BT gameplay experience, the cat and mouse game of sneaking or fighting. Their design is great. They look ominous and gross and terrifying when they start picking up speed to get their hands on you. They're extremely aggressive when provoked, spooked, again if they hear you or if you start shooting them, but are otherwise pretty easy to deal with, only taking a grenade or two, or a few rounds from a hematic gun. I like them as the baseline encounter for BTs. They're scary but manageable, and I think that's all they need to be, a good starting point for what a BT can be. There's also a more passive BT called a jellyfish. They do hunt you down if you get close enough to them and explode on contact with Sam, but they move very slowly and you have to get right up next to them to activate them. They float in place and hover in small clusters and are super easy to deal with, popping in just a few hits from anything hematic. There's an evolved version of these guys that split into smaller jellyfish as they pop, but again, pretty easy to just keep popping them. I like them as well. They're creepy in a different way. They're passive and harmless, but still capable of a lot of damage. It's like if you could hang out with a bear or something. You know it can still hurt you, but it's just sitting there not doing anything. They also add some variety to BT areas by giving you a different approach to how you navigate around them. Are you willing to dump some ammo into clearing the area, or will you risk the slow movement of a dozen jellyfishes following you? It adds to the potential of BT encounters by giving you a little more to consider past the gazers. Speaking of those gazers, they lead us right into talking about the next BT type, catchers. If a gazer catches Sam, they don't outright kill him. Instead, they create a pool of tar beneath him and summon other gazers to help pull Sam beneath the surface to drag him away from where he was caught. While this happens, your goal is to reach the edge of the tar pool to get out of the gazer radius. You can prep your escape by tossing some hematic or EX grenades, the EX grenades being the other bodily waste ones, which let you get away from the gazers a little easier. If you manage to get out of the tar, great, you're free from that gazer but likely not out of the BT area entirely, so you'll have to get back on the defensive. If you don't manage to escape the gazer's pull, you enter the next phase of BT encounters, facing a catcher BT. Catchers come in a couple of forms, 2 that appear frequently if you get caught by gazers, and 2 that appear as specific boss fights during the story. I'm going to cover all the boss fights a little later in the video, so we'll be focusing on the other 2 here, the feline type and the multi-limb type. I don't really like the name multi-limb, so we're going to call it the marine type to match the feline. With either catcher type, when you're entering this second phase, you are dragged away from where the gazer caught you, and pulled into an open area where the BTs can summon an arena of old world structures from the tar, creating some pretty exciting and vertical spaces for you to jump around and fight the catcher in. The marine type appears as a massive dolphin with limbs protruding all over its body, acting as arms and tentacles to attack and grab the player. It moves pretty slowly and submerges itself in the tar around you to disappear and reposition in the arena, attempting to ambush Sam with powerful attacks like a chiral laser beam or throwing its entire body at you. I like fighting this one more than the feline type, which we'll cover in a second. I think it's a more visual experience than the feline type, and the large single target makes the fight feel more focused. Its movement also really helps the encounters. It being able to move around and reappear all over forces you to run and jump across buildings to reposition yourself to get an attack in or avoid one from the BT. The feline type is a massive BT that mimics a lion, appearing as a massive cat that can split into multiple forms, up to 3 I think. Its movement isn't too dissimilar from the marine type, but I think it focuses more on short-range melee attacks with its tail and body and overwhelming the player with multiple targets. The feline jumps around a lot, moves pretty quickly, and again, there can be up to 3 of them, so you're forced to keep an eye on all of them to avoid being attacked. I think it's less interesting to me because the movement of the feline kind of goes against the catcher arena with all of the old buildings. They mostly just knock into them and can't seem to land on the buildings with you, instead just tearing them down if they impact with them. With the marine type, this at least feels right with the massive dolphin body slamming into the building, but with how agile the feline seems, it just feels off to me. I feel like they should be able to keep up with Sam moving around the buildings and using them to the extent that you're able to as the player, for cover and for getting into vantage points. With either type you get after moving into the catcher phase, if you're able to defeat the BT, great, you clear the area of BTs temporarily and you get a massive boon of chiral crystals for fabricating more equipment. More on that later. If you don't succeed and the catcher manages to catch you, well, just like any other human, you trigger a void out and destroy part of the environment. Like the human enemies, this will leave a crater in the world temporarily or result in a game over entirely if you destroy something that's deemed important, so there are some solid consequences here if you fuck up the fight. I like the catchers quite a bit. I think they're exciting, large-scale fights that really up the action in the game and create memorable moments, especially the first time you fight one and the arena shifts into a destroyed urban setting. They're not too difficult to take on, I think, but on very hard they have massive health pools, so the fights can drag out quite a bit. I'd love to see these expanded on with more variants and more variety to the arenas, especially with more reactivity and use of the arena on the BT side of things. Like I said, something like letting the feline type jump across buildings with you, but I think they're fun fights that give you extra excitement and punishment if you manage to mess up avoiding normal BTs. And for BTs in general, I really like them as an enemy and obstacle for the game. They create more consideration for how you approach and navigate the world, giving you a passive and quiet approach to avoid them entirely, or letting you turn on them with your own blood to risk your life to take theirs. They're scary, they're intense, the designs are fantastic, and their inclusion is a pillar of the core experience. I mentioned it before, but I do think the horror of BTs unfortunately wears off as the game goes on, but that's a product of most horror elements in games. Once you get used to their tricks, if nothing new is added, it gets predictable. Death Stranding takes that a step further with letting you get all of the horror out and fight back hard, but with considerations for other systems in the game, like caring for your BB and condition of your cargo, I don't think the tension is fully lost when you're fighting against them, and I'll expand more on your cargo and BB soon. Lastly, for combat in the game, this is kind of a last-minute addition to the script because it doesn't really fit nicely anywhere else. You might have noticed I mentioned that when you die, you have the chance to create a void out. But how does that work if you died? How are you revisiting the world after your death? Sam has the ability to travel through the seam, essentially the place between life and death in-game, giving you an in-universe way for Sam to respawn and loosening up the consequences of death in gameplay, unless you get caught by a BT and left a void out. I like this narratively. I talked about it a bit in the narrative section of the video, but as a gameplay mechanic, I do enjoy when a game tries to approach why we're able to respawn. It's fun to see all the justifications like hollowing in Dark Souls or something. A Death Stranding is no different. It's just kind of a way to write off why we can come back and gives us a deeper connection to death in the world, but with such a lenient respawn, I think you can get a little detached from dying and not think of it too much if you die during a fight. If humans kill you, great. They steal your cargo and take it back to their camp and you have to go get it back. Not much to it. If a BT kills you and doesn't consume you, like if it just hits you with a melee attack, you're right back into the BT fight where you left off. It creates an imbalance, like I said. Death is supposed to be deeper and more thoughtful here, but if I can just pop right back up mid-boss fight, what do I care? I don't know how I'd approach it otherwise. I think creating the assumption that a BT always consumes you when you die to create a void out would be a better way to proceed with those, but with human enemies, you shake it off and go get your stuff back. I think progressively hindering the player could make death a little more meaningful in gameplay, and I think your max stamina does decrease when you come back to life, but I think this should be pushed even further with some effects on Sam and the player when we come back, like maybe a decreased carry limit or loss of some motor functions to make walking around a little harder for a little bit, maybe until we rest. I don't know, death in gameplay never feels like it means something to me unfortunately. I just sit up a little bit to make sure I get through the encounter and continue on my way once I brute force through it. Again, I like the theme a lot for the narrative and the world, but it detracts a lot from death being impactful specifically for the player in gameplay. Oh, and while I'm here, while you're in the theme, you can opt into connecting with other players to open up more connections in the multiplayer component of the game. More on all of that in a bit. Before I get into the boss fights we see throughout Death Stranding, I want to summarize my thoughts on the base combat gameplay throughout the game. I love it, to keep it simple. It's surprisingly energetic and fast-paced and gives you a lot of things to play with to make combat what you want. A stealth-focused pacifist that sneakily wraps up their enemies, a slugger throwing cargo at everyone and drop-kicking them in the face, a man of war shooting bullets by the dozen, lethally or not, and that's just the half of it. With BTs, there's the added tension of being caught, the risk of your life, the environment, your cargo, and the options to face BTs are just as well-rounded and fun too, with stealth and aggressive options at your disposal. It gets a little less intense as time goes on, but that can be part of the fun with you becoming the one they should be scared of. And before I talk about boss fights, here's another spoiler warning if you skip the narrative section. They're all related to the plot. The catcher BTs are the only boss content you'll see outside of the story. So if you don't want to see those, skip to the time on screen now. To keep my thoughts on the bosses short and to kill time while that's on screen, I think they're fantastic thematically and great beats for the narrative, but fall flat on the gameplay front most of the time, especially in the final act of the game. Hopefully you skipped ahead if you wanted to, otherwise let's get started. I want to start with the last fight of the game, which isn't as weird as it sounds. It just happens to be the least interesting mechanically and the one I have the least to say about. It's pretty much a beefed up marine type BT, appearing as a whale type that's capable of flying in the air and swimming through the tar arena that spawns with it like the others. Its moveset is again very similar to the marine type, with chiral lasers and using its body to physically rush Sam. It can also spawn some jellyfish and special gazers that hone in on the player to deal minimal damage and lock them in place. I don't really like this fight. It's more of what you've already seen. The spawning jellyfish and gazers is even reused from another boss fight, and I think it just gets lost in the spectacle of it all. It's great visually, don't get me wrong. The massive whale swimming through the air is terrifying, but to play it, it's just a big target for me to shoot rockets at. I don't think it adds enough from the marine type and ends up running on too long on the very hard difficulty, again thanks to an inflated health pool. I don't think I have much else to say or add because the whale doesn't give me much to go off of. Next, I want to talk about fighting Higgs in the beginning of the final act of the game. You fight Higgs 3 times, so we're going to go through each phase. First, he fights you through a massive Titan-type BT that he summons. This suffers a lot of the same pains as the whale type does. It's just a massive target for you to shoot and doesn't have a very interesting moveset. It shoots a massive laser, I think it swings its arms at you or tries to stomp on you, and it summons geysers and jellyfish to distract you while it attacks. To deal proper damage to it, you're expected to hit weak spots across its body, signaled to you with solidified beryllium that pops up throughout the fight. It's a very long fight that overstays its welcome, and to add insult to injury, I'd go as far as saying that the arena in the fight is outright bad. It's a long, thin stretch on a city street without much cover, verticality, or movement options for the player, forcing you to run back and forth beneath the Titan to scoop up supplies and keep shooting at it. This is easily the weakest fight in the game, and I actively dislike it. I dreaded fighting it again for this playthrough, and will probably feel the same when I eventually play the game again. For Higgs' second fight, he faces you personally this time and for the next one. For the first phase of the second fight, it's a stealth and melee focused encounter, with Higgs on the ground and taunting Sam, shooting at him with an assault rifle and throwing grenades. You're expected to physically beat him with your fists or cargo, or take him down with strange takedowns in stealth. It's not very interesting, but the movement and gameplay with on-foot melee encounters is fun, so it doesn't detract too much from that. There's a second phase here with Higgs ditching his gun and taking on Sam in close quarters combat, using his knife and powers to teleport around Sam for quick, fast combos. I like this phase a lot more. It's more intense with Higgs' movement and he's unpredictable. He teleports in the middle of combos, sometimes he throws out grenades after he moves, he has a lot of options. For Sam and the player though, it's more of the same from the last phase, hit him or bind him until he goes down. Then, for the final fight with Higgs, it's a hand-to-hand fight between the two. This is obviously playing on a classic cliche of both opponents being tired from fighting but too stubborn to stop, forcing them to get down to the basics and take each other on in the simplest way they can. It's fun for the narrative. Higgs has been a thorn in our side throughout the entire story, and the sequence of fighting him over and over is definitely wearing me down, so I imagine Sam is getting tired too. So I do like it, but again, it goes on way too long. Higgs doesn't take very much damage from Sam's attacks. This could be a very hard difficulty thing, so take that as you will, but it just drags the fight out on and on. The moveset you have here is pretty limited. A 3-hit combo, you can block, and you can weave in a direction to dodge attacks from Higgs. Higgs just doesn't seem to do much during this sequence though. It's weird, it goes on even longer because he seems very passive to actually do something for the player to react to, which is extra strange because the game gives you plenty of opportunities to regain health during this fight in case Higgs is pummeling you, but he won't be, so I don't know. It's just bizarre to me how much of this fight is one-sided for the player. I get that we're supposed to win, but then why is his scripting so hesitant to do anything, and why are there even defensive options if he doesn't attack much, and why is there such an easy way to heal if he isn't hitting you, and on and on and on. Altogether, I don't really like the Higgs fights very much either. The first one with the Titan is boring, the arena makes it worse, the boss itself doesn't do anything particularly interesting, it's wholly reliant on the narrative stakes. The next fight with Higgs isn't bad, but they aren't very good either, with Higgs being kind of boring to engage in the first phase, and only slightly better in the second. The final fight is the best narratively and thematically, but falls the furthest mechanically, giving you a pretty boring sequence to play that doesn't even respect you enough to fight back. I know I flashed it on screen just a second ago, but to look at an example of this kind of fight that's done really well, Metal Gear Solid 4's final boss against Liquid Ocelot is great. It's exactly this premise. A hand-to-hand sequence with a unique moveset, and it keeps up the pressure with a difficult fight. I don't know why Death Stranding couldn't do the same. Last for our boss lineup, we have the fights against Clifford Unger, a soldier trapped in different eras of war. These ones are actually good, so if you were typing out a comment about how stupid I am, firstly, thank you. Second, hear me out just a little longer. With each fight against Cliff, you get a unique arena in an entirely new setting, each one taking place during a different American conflict throughout history, World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War, and we're gonna go through each like we did with Higgs. The World War I fight is easily the best for me. Its setting in the middle of no man's land, in the middle of trench warfare, is nothing short of fantastic. It has the benefit of being the first of the fights for a strong reaction to the change of pace, but I also think it's just the best arena for a fight. It takes place entirely in the trenches of a war zone, with Cliff and his squad of soldiers hunting for Sam through the tight, winding corridors. You can jump out of the trenches and brave the battlefield to cut across the arena, ambushing Cliff, or running from a fight, and I think that's a fun and exciting inclusion to make the arena feel more active. Fighting Cliff here, and in the two other fights, is pretty straightforward. He summons 4 or 5 soldiers as an entourage while he searches for Sam, each soldier equipped with a period-appropriate weapon for the setting. The World War I guys have semi-automatic slow rifles, the World War II guys have automatic guns, and so on. They go down pretty easily but are extremely aggressive, ambushing and pushing the player for quick and intense fights. Cliff himself acts just like the soldiers, but I think he tends to stay back while they push forward, acting as a commanding officer, which forces you to pick between finishing off his squad or trying to focus on him through their hail of bullets. Attacking Cliff forces him into a down state a couple of times. Each time he'll retreat and relocate to somewhere else in the arena for you to repeat the process. Again, this is probably just a me thing, playing on very hard, but I think you have to put down Cliff a few too many times on this difficulty. The fights are fun, quick, and snappy like any other gunfight in the game, but you're forced to drop Cliff multiple times, and I think the amount of times you have to down him goes up with each encounter. Speaking of, let's move on to World War II. Again, this one isn't as interesting as the first, it's a lot of the same, minus the setting in the trenches and minus the consideration for putting yourself in danger for an upper hand. It's a much more straightforward encounter with you having to pin Cliff down in the arena to dish out damage a couple of times. The arena for this fight is packed with cover from destroyed buildings and roads, so it's mostly a cover-based engagement with you moving between spots for supplies. Next, Cliff drags us to Vietnam. Thanks, Cliff. This one is in the middle of the two for me. Not as bad as the second, but definitely not as good as the first. With the Vietnam setting, you are able to use stealth much more with the jungles and foliage around you, which I think is really fun. It's a reflection of guerrilla warfare in Vietnam, and all of the fights are like this. They're representations of that conflict in a tight, condensed form. Trench warfare and no man's land for the first, a city siege and small squad-based conflict for the second, and now this in the final fight. The arena for this one is again covered in grass and trees for you to sneak around in, and it has a large open arena in the center on an elevated plane which Cliff likes to retreat to, forcing you into open conflicts. The Clifford Unger fights are the peak of the excitement for me. They're easily the best action, combat-based gameplay for fast-paced, engaging fights in visually enticing arenas that tie Cliff's character really well into the story. Like I said, they can drag a bit with how many times you need to knock Cliff down, but thanks to the fights revolving around the base gunplay in the game, they're still energetic and fun to play, unlike the other major boss fights that lock you down into a specific play style or take away too much from the core gameplay to let you approach it how you'd like. Managing cargo and delivering packages is the core of the experience in Death Stranding. While you will be beating up bad guys and shooting monsters regularly, it's all for the sake of hauling your heavy load across the country. And I know, you're getting excited thinking about boxes and hiking across the United States, but trust me, it gets even better. I'm being sarcastic, of course. I know how lugging cargo for most of the game sounds, but Death Stranding makes an earnest attempt at making delivering boxes interesting and manages to pull it off. When you take on a job at a delivery terminal, you'll be presented with a list of gigs and expectations for each. How much cargo you'll be carrying, what type of cargo it is, if there's a time limit for this job, and what equipment is suggested or being provided. Throughout the story, these are orders for Sam. Otherwise though, they're listed as standard orders and premium orders. Standard orders are your typical gigs to haul some boxes, while premium orders ask you to take on additional challenges, like a hard requirement on how much cargo you have to bring or adding a time limit. So, you grabbed a job to bring something from point A to point B. Maybe you have to do it within 10 minutes or something. How do you go about that? First off, you need to load up your cargo, which can be carried in a variety of ways. Sam can carry an impressive amount of weight on his back in a fortified backpack and even tower boxes high above him, only really restricted by your carry weight limit. You can also attach packages to 4 attach points across Sam's suit, anchored positions on his shoulders and hips that are almost as equally as secure as the boxes in his fortified bag. Last, you can carry cargo in both of your hands, with next to no restriction on what can be carried in each hand. Next, you need to consider how you're loading this cargo. Packages come in various shapes and sizes, so you'll need to think about which pieces can fit on your suit, which will be in the backpack, what's okay to poke out over the bag, and so on. With all of that, you also need to consider your balance, with you ideally centering the gravity on Sam's body so your walking is made as easy as possible without Sam tipping over to either side. Lastly, you need to consider what type of cargo you have. You might have a fragile package that would be best to be carried in your reinforced bag, or even so fragile you have to carry it by hand. Carrying it in your hands and forcing you to hold the input physically to keep the cargo on your person the entire journey. Or maybe the cargo is hydrophobic. You can't get it wet, so you better put it in the backpack and make sure you have a cover on your bag so it doesn't get hit by any rain. Or
make sure you carry pizzas properly at all times. If you do something stupid like turn it on its side, you'll ruin it.
So before you can even begin walking your boxes over the next kilometer, you have to consider all of that for each delivery. As time goes on and you become the man who delivers, it becomes second nature. I can load up deliveries exactly how I'd like to optimize them in seconds, and I think it's a really fun expression of knowledge for the player to get comfortable with all of that information, because it is a lot to take in. And still, there's more prep work for our delivery. Before you head out, you should consider where you're heading and what might help you travel to where you're going. Are you going through the mountains? You should probably equip some thermal pads on your suit to resist the cold and negate some of the stamina reduction. Is it up an incline you haven't traveled before? You probably need to pack some ladders and climbing rope to get up and over safely. There's a lot of tools at your disposal for deliveries. It'd take quite a while for me to go over each of them, but I'll highlight a few so you get the idea. To start, you need to make sure you have enough materials at a chiral printer, which is usually available wherever you can pick up a job. You get supplies by finding packages in the world that contain materials or by harvesting chiral crystals out in the open, all of which are needed to craft your various weapons, vehicles, and gear. Gear like active skeletons, which are exoskeletons you can equip on Sam to increase his physical abilities, like the speed skeleton to increase his movement and sprinting speed, even allowing him to jump insane distances, the power skeleton to increase his overall carry weight at the expense of attach points on the suit, or the all-terrain skeleton to make climbing hills and inclines easier. I'm a sucker for the speed skeleton, if you were wondering. It makes combat even more hectic and fast, and moving around quicker otherwise is a plus for me. Or you can bring a floating carrier or two, collapsible pallets that allow you to place cargo on them and attach to Sam's belt to follow him across easier terrain. These carriers can carry a lot of weight and have a good amount of space for you to bring shipments to your destinations. You can also ride on top of them for quick travel down inclines, which is just a great inclusion for some quick fun. Or you can bring that climbing rope and those ladders that I mentioned, two of the first tools that you get and some of the most versatile. The climbing rope is 30 meters of rope that you place on a flat, even surface that allows you to hold on and anchor the rope for easy travel across rough terrain or vertical travel down an incline or drop. The ladder does much of the same, only extending 10 meters, but much more lenient about placement, letting you create bridges, quick climbs up a slope, or crucial verticality for a steep cliff. There's a lot of stuff to play with to make delivering cargo easier and more fun, and I love it all. It's a simple thing to start with that becomes so much more with the mechanics of moving through the world and the tools that you're given to do so with. One very big caveat I have for all of this gear you can craft and take with you is that managing, equipping, and swapping out different tools and weapons is a huge hassle. It's all handled through various radial menus, one for tools, one for consumables, and one for equipment. You can only perform one action at a time in the menu, like dropping an empty gun, which I think is the biggest hurdle for gear management in the game. I think an easy way to handle this a little better with the same menus would be to add an action queue, allowing you to queue up different actions that'll be performed once you close the menu, letting you drop a piece of gear, equip the next one, and cycle out an empty bag of blood all in one trip of the menu, triggering once you fully exit the radial menu. But now that you have your cargo loaded, you've got some tools to help with the journey, let's actually get out there and talk about how you move around the world. Your primary mode of travel is on foot. You walk, run, sprint, and climb across America while maintaining your stamina and endurance and keeping your balance under control across difficult terrain. You can identify terrain with your Odra deck, a scanner attached to Sam's suit that lets him scan the environment and mark the world based on the terrain. It's quick and easy to use and read. With a simple pulse, you'll mark a wide area around and in front of Sam, showing him 3 different terrain markers: blue for easy and safe terrains, yellow for passable, manageable areas, and red for dangerous, unsafe paths. Passing across each is pretty straightforward. Blue terrain is a light walk, yellow might have an incline or expect you to maintain your balance, while red will likely result in a quick tumble or worse. Terrain can be handled in a number of ways, like through the use of tools that I mentioned before, like equipping an all-terrain skeleton will let you endure that rough terrain a lot better, but traveling, regardless of the terrain, is hard work, which is reflected by Sam's stamina, exhaustion, and endurance. When you head out fully rested, you have a full stamina bar. Stamina goes down with any physical action, walking, running, and jumping, so it's easy to manage and gauge how much stamina you'll be using based on what you're doing. You can regain stamina by slowing down for a moment or by drinking from Sam's canteen to quickly inject some stamina back into his system. You can also get an adrenaline boost from stressful situations, like being pursued by BTs, which maxes out your stamina temporarily until you get a chance to breathe, resetting back to your stamina level before the rush. Exhaustion sets in when you've been out for too long. Your maximum stamina amount will start to go out and will be represented by missing chunks of the stamina bar, requiring you to physically take a break and rest or to head to a private room to sleep for a bit. While resting out in the open world, you can let Sam take a full nap, stretch his legs and shoulders, and depending on how long you let him rest, it will reflect your exhaustion regeneration. Resting in a private room will always max out your stamina gauge, so it's good to rest regularly. Endurance is a bit of a blind spot for me. I think it represents Sam's balance under strenuous situations, like trying to hold his balance while standing in a flowing river, and I think it's solely based on your max stamina, depleting over time during specific actions, and recovering behind the scenes when you're not. This is just the surface of traveling through Death Stranding, but again, I love it. This is a walking simulator. This is the walking simulator, asking you to consider so many things in your traveling that most games would completely wave to the side for the sake of ease. Death Stranding expects you to take your travel seriously and to take care of Sam and your cargo, which makes the act of delivering packages for a couple dozen hours engaging and even fun. Oh yeah, you have to make sure your cargo arrives in good condition too. You can't just show up with a bunch of broken boxes. While traveling, you'll likely run into timefall or rain, which damages a protective layer on all packages in the game that prevents damage to cargo inside of the box, represented by the silver case on the box. If it decays and gets washed away, then the cargo itself can get damaged, with its condition being shown on the packaging tape on the outside, with a bright yellow being maximum condition, wearing all the way down to a deep red for low condition. Thankfully, you packed some container repair spray while you were prepping for the job, right? The spray restores the outer layer, but it doesn't help if you damage the cargo, so it's more of a preventative measure. Obviously, your cargo is going to get damaged if you're not taking care of yourself and taking caution on your routes. If you fall from trying to cross rough terrain, your cargo is going to take that fall too and take some damage. If Sam gets too tired to keep standing in a river, he'll get swept away from the current and damage the outer lining of the boxes, leading to more trouble. Everything with how you move in the world is tied to delivering, and delivering packages is inherently tied to how you traverse. It's all interconnected systems and mechanics to make sure that you treat your cargo as good as you're treating yourself, and I think that's fantastic. Again, it's expounding on the simplest objective in a game: take an item from one place to another. But it's taking that concept and bringing it to a heightened sense of reality, with all of these systems acting as ways to make you think more about how you move through a game world. Hopefully you've made it to your objective with all of your boxes in good condition and you didn't wear Sam out too much. When you complete a delivery, you'll bring all of your expected cargo to another delivery terminal and place it inside, netting you a performance review based on a couple of factors. First, the level of time it took you to deliver the package. Pretty straightforward. Deliver it quicker, get a better rating. Next, the condition of the package. Again, pretty obvious. If it's in good shape, you get a good rating. Then you're graded on the amount that you fulfilled for the order. Usually this is 1-to-1 with what you were expected to deliver, but sometimes objectives can have a minimal amount required for completion, which will net you a better rating if you decide to go past the minimum requirement. On top of your performance review, you also have a porter grade to represent your overall performance throughout the game, represented by 5 points that affect your gameplay, like your cargo condition stat giving Sam a higher endurance, or quick delivery times giving you more maximum stamina. You'll also increase a connection level with each person that you deliver to based on your performance, netting you rewards and upgrades to your gear. These are mostly optional to increase, with most critical path connections getting up to around 3 stars for most basic tools, but maxing out each of these conditions can give you powerful items and upgrades that are crucial to your success, like unlocking improved weapons or upgrading tools like the active skeletons. Again, these systems are tied together in such a way that it's cohesive from the start of your delivery to the very end. If you're prepared, if you're cautious, if you take it easy, you'll get a good review and you'll just get better over time. And on top of delivering on foot, you can also employ a couple of different vehicles to help you navigate the world quicker and sometimes safer. First up, you get the reverse trike, a motorcycle with 2 wheels up front and a wheel in the back. This bike is highly maneuverable, very fast with limited cargo space, and a lot of fun. This is my go-to for any extended journey. The bike is quick and fun to drive, letting you transition the bike into a motorcycle for a speed boost, and hitting wheelies to get some serious air when you need to jump. The physics and collision with vehicles in general is pretty awkward and definitely not great, but I think it's easy to get used to. That doesn't excuse it for being painful to drive across simple bumps and inclines, but it's a skill that you develop in a way. The reverse trike is the easiest to manage, and the trucks are definitely the worst. The truck is the inverse of the trike, allowing you to haul a lot of cargo at the cost of speed and ease of use. It's bulky, it's slow, but it'll get all your boxes where you need to go. Trying to do any kind of off-road action with this thing will showcase how poorly vehicles handle at any sort of obstacle and resistance, but they're undeniably useful for the long hauls. Last, you can get the Roadster, exclusive to the director's cut of the game. It's kind of the middle ground between the two, having a lot of cargo space in the passenger seat and on the back of the car and moving pretty quickly on straightaways, but with its long and wide profile, it's not great to drive anywhere but the road, hence the name. Speaking of roads, you can rebuild some. There's a massive highway system spanning the entire middle region of the game, the primary play space for a playthrough, that requires you to deposit a lot of materials to restore the road for you to use. This is a community effort using the asynchronous multiplayer components. More on all of that in a bit, but it's a fun reward for a lot of effort, making travel between locations that much easier and letting the Roadster really shine. The truck and trike also have a couple of different variants to mix up how you use them, like the transporter type for the trike that adds a small trailer hitched to the back of the bike, or the long-range variants of either vehicle, giving them extended battery life. I like these inclusions a lot, on top of just really enjoying the use of vehicles. Vehicles obviously make the experience of delivering much quicker and easier, but I like the use case for each vehicle. They all have a specialty, and they all get a chance to shine, with variants adding to the mix just a little more. Delivering cargo in Death Stranding remains to be my favorite gameplay loop in the game, and thank God, because it's the main thing it does. There's nothing quite like the feeling of relief you get when your drop-off is finally in sight for the first delivery or the 100th. And again, it's all because of the culmination of mechanics and your effort to engage with them, paying off to see the reward and sending you off to the next delivery a little better and a little more experienced. Connecting and creating a chiral network across the United States is your main goal throughout the journey of Death Stranding. It acts as a way to connect different settlements to each other with something like a super-speed quantum-level internet connection, capable of projecting holograms, printing materials and goods, and transferring data between knots, or cities and settlements. It's also used to connect the player to other players traveling through a loosely shared world in asynchronous cooperation, or the ability to work and support other players outside of your immediate game while they can help you out too. The most obvious way the game connects you to other players is the use of online structures that you can build for other players to use, and structures that you can find from those other players. There's a good amount of these to give you some variety, but not too many, so let's go through each to break down what they do and how they can help us out on our deliveries. First up, we can create post boxes. These act as private storage lockers in the world, away from knots or cities, that allow you to store items and share them with other players. If you place an item in the post box, you can get it out later, like placing some hematic weapons in a BT-infested area so you always have a supply if you're coming by. When an item is placed in the post box, you can then mark it as a shared item to let other players use what you've placed inside. Next, we have watchtowers, tall vertical structures that allow you to enter a remote viewport to look at the surrounding area, letting you scout ahead and plot a route for where you're heading. I don't think these are particularly useful because you can plot a route from the in-game map and that's always available to you, and the map tells you enough information to let you know what you might run into, but it is a real-time alternative if you want to look ahead. You can also create bridges, which are pretty straightforward. This is the first large structure that requires some extra materials other than the portable printer for all other structures. It's a massive bridge with you being able to decide its length at 50 or 80 meters. They're useful, they're often placed above hazardous pits or over rivers, but I never really build them myself. The need for an extra trip for materials kind of puts me off building them, and I'm fine going through a more potentially difficult route over making 2 trips to where I need to go, but I appreciate a bridge when I see one. Next, you can create generators. These are small, wireless chargers that charge Sam's suit battery and vehicles, crucial to you using helpful equipment and obviously the vehicles themselves. Sam's suit battery drains pretty quickly if you're using some pieces of equipment like an active skeleton, maybe some power gloves, or a stabilizer on your backpack, so a generator can feel like a lifeline if you're running low on battery power in the middle of nowhere. Same goes for your vehicles. Their batteries last a decent amount of time, but if you push them through more intense workloads, like driving through a river or activating a speed boost, it'll drain a lot quicker. Next up, we have timefall shelters. These are small areas that are shielded from the timefall, or rain, that allow you to rest to let a storm pass over and repair your cargo's protective layer. These are also extremely helpful. When you find one just outside of BT territory where you've been forced to endure the rain, it'll feel like an immediate sense of relief to repair your tools and cargo. Last, for what I consider the core structures, you can build safe houses, another large structure that requires a deposit of extra materials. These are essentially portable private rooms, creating an elevator and bunker for you to rest in and enter a private room with all of the features inside. I don't think I've talked extensively about private rooms yet, so let's get into that. Private rooms are places for Sam to rest and relax between deliveries out in the world in safe houses, at major knots, or even at personal prepper bunkers if you have a high enough connection level with the owner. Inside, you can let Sam rest to refill his stamina and health, as well as replenishing BB stress levels. You can also shower or use the bathroom for those EX grenades, drink some energy drinks for additional stamina, and customize your gear at the equipment rack. Most customization unlocks come through connection levels with settlements, unlocking new paint jobs and color schemes for your accessories and vehicles. I like these being included. It's fun to mix and match and find what you like with your accessories and try to make your vehicles feel like your own. I do dislike that Sam's suit color can only be changed in the post-game, after you've completed the entire story. I know the base suit color represents him being a porter, but I don't know, just let me change it. Why not? There's already limited player expression through customization with a few accessories. The suit color would have gone a long way with making a more major change for that expression. Moving right along, we can get into some of the more fun structures. First, my favorite, the zipline. This creates an anchor point in the world that must be connected to another point, up to 300 meters away, allowing you to smoothly travel through the air between any zipline it can reach. I love creating zipline networks in this game. Even in my abridged playthrough for the video, I couldn't help myself from connecting a few in the middle region to make my life a little easier. They're fast, they're safe, and they're a lot of fun. They're a must build for me, and I deeply appreciate when I find some online ziplines already in place for me to take advantage of. The next 3 structures are entirely exclusive to the director's cut of the game, which is a shame, because they're all really fun inclusions, like the jump ramp, a ridiculous means of travel to propel you through the air with a safe descent thanks to your Chiral crystals. You can send vehicles off of these, jump off them on foot, whatever, and I can't resist them. If I see one in the direction that I'm heading, yeah, I'm hitting that ramp regardless of the consequences. They're just fun, and I love seeing the creative places that people end up trying to place them. Another fun one is the cargo catapult, creating a catapult that lets you load your cargo into a drop pod that you can shoot over large distances, falling with a remote-controlled descent for you to go retrieve your packages. Again, this is just a fun thing to mess around with. I think you can even use the drop pods as a weapon against enemies. I built one of these that had really good placement, but otherwise they're just kind of a gimmick. And for our last structure, we have chiral bridges, unfortunately probably the weakest thing you can build. Similar to bridges, you can place them as a means to get over gaps or avoid rough terrain. You can build them at some funky angles to place them more vertically, which is great. They also have a much smaller form factor to let you angle and position them in tighter spaces. So why don't I like them? Because they're only active during clear weather. If there are any clouds above, chiral bridges are disabled until the sky clears up, making them entirely useless in BT areas or anywhere a storm might pass through. They're cool in concept and execution, but ruined by their weather limitation. All of these structures can be built by you and others throughout the world, both to help yourself and aid someone else if you're feeling generous. You can also upgrade structures, both your own and other players, to boost their functionality, like increasing the zipline attach range and adding some customization to a structure, letting you project a hologram or play some music when nearby. I love the sense of community that structures bring on. If something is placed in a convenient, helpful way, then it'll be an extremely useful tool for you and others to make use of, and you can go the extra mile to upgrade it for everyone if you feel so inclined. And of course, you can get a bunch of likes from other players based on how helpful you've been. Likes can be awarded by you to others and from others to you, letting you show your appreciation for structures, materials, and gear if you want to let a player know that they've helped you. Again, I love this system. It's a quick and easy way to give appreciation to others for being virtuous where they might not have to be. You do get a hefty amount of likes from completing orders for the story and optional missions, but player likes are where it's at for me. Your structures will have a visible like indicator to show how many players have liked it, you'll get updated when someone makes use of something you placed, and it feels great to know you're helping someone get by. There are a few more ways to feel a little less lonely out there in the world that come online along with structures and the Chiral Network. The most obvious are player-placed signs. These act as visual indicators and messages from other players to tell you about the area, warn you about what's ahead, or give you some support and even quick buffs to help you push on. I love these too. The sense of community in Death Stranding is amazing with the help of the signs, along with the like system and structures. And it's honestly the most supportive and kind community I've seen in a game, and you can't even talk to anybody. Which is probably why it feels so kind, honestly, but yeah, everyone just wants to help and support each other to keep on keeping on. You can also find cairns and mushrooms placed by other players who rest and urinate at specific spots, respectively. Cairns grow and get larger as more and more people rest in the spot, which lets you and others get quicker stamina recovery if you rest in the cairn as well. The mushrooms do the same. The more people that pee on something, a bigger mushroom will grow in that place. I like these too. The cairns are very useful and a friendly inclusion to help you feel like you have some company out here, and the mushrooms are just funny. I'll piss on one whenever I have a chance. Altogether, I think the multiplayer system in Death Stranding creates a unique experience that can change and differ your opinion of the game entirely based on what you put into it and what you get in return. I've mentioned it a few times now, but this playthrough was a bit rushed just to refamiliarize myself with the story and mechanics so I could take notes for the video, and I definitely felt that the most with the asynchronous cooperation. I didn't help build roads, I didn't place a lot of structures for other people to use, and I didn't take on extra lost cargo to help out someone that misplaced something. But in the inverse, I was able to still rely on people to get me across the country. Where I was being selfish, other players that I connected with were giving back to help players continue on and make players like me have a chance out here. It's an entirely unique multiplayer system that creates that strand-type game, with you creating strands, or connections, with other players that you'll never meet, further driving home the core theme of the game with connection and bringing people together and you might not have even noticed. The presentation throughout Death Stranding is just another factor that contributes to the game being that unique, new type of game. Death Stranding has a cinematic feel to it, which is no surprise if you're familiar with the Metal Gear games. Kojima and his team have always strived to bring a more theatrical experience to games, and specifically cutscenes. Death Stranding pushes that to its absolute limit. Everything in Death Stranding is rendered in a high fidelity with an art style to mimic real life, and it looks fantastic. Everything you see looks great, from the expansive vistas that definitely don't look anything like the American wilderness, to the tools and items you interact with in gameplay. I really don't have anything to detract from the general look and feel of visual fidelity through the game. I think it speaks for itself when you look at it. It's just a great looking game that holds up 6 years on. But there are some things I want to talk about specifically, things that Death Stranding does that makes it stand out further or push the medium of games along to a higher standard. Like the simple freedom you have of the camera in gameplay and sometimes in cutscenes. You always have control of the camera to point it where you need to look and wherever you want. It sounds simple, but a lot of games will restrict you to one viewpoint or tie the camera down on things you should be looking at. Death Stranding instead lets you control the camera seamlessly, and I love that I get to decide what I'm looking at and how it's presented. But in cutscenes where you don't have control, it's fine because the placement of the camera is always intentional and purposeful, giving you a cinematic quality to these sequences. I'm not a cinematographer or anything, but the shots throughout cutscenes always feel so important, like they're adding to the visual language of a scene just like a movie would. Not just a basic camera technique to show you something, but allowing you to look through the world through a specific, intentional lens. I also love how everything looks in this game, from the near-future technology to the supernatural fantastical creatures. Everything has a consistent and connected design philosophy, like the over-designed features on the reverse trike having the same process for anything related to bridges, their architecture, equipment, clothing, and so on. And just like the beach things, or BTs, they all have a similar look to them, so they're distinguishable. These massive, tar-covered monsters with golden faces or appendages. You'll definitely know a BT when you see one. And don't get me started on the visual language and design of the beaches themselves. Cliff's Beach is the most obvious showcase of the insane, creative, and visually inspired design for beaches, with his presenting as different conflicts through American history, twisted with an unnatural and creepy thread, creating a unique-looking set piece for his battles. Which really sells Death Stranding on not only creating those realistic renders of people and future technology, it also showcases fantastic creativity in the design philosophy for the game. I think I could go on and on about how great things look in Death Stranding, but again, I think the game on screen speaks for itself. If you like the bizarre and twisted creations in the game, you'll love it. If you're just interested in seeing a high-fidelity, beautifully constructed world, that's here too. Onto something that's not so obvious to a viewer, I also really enjoy the use of the HUD, or heads-up display, throughout the game. It's a minimal design that's also baked into the world with in-world prompts and markers to guide you and highlight different things as you approach or find them. At any given time, the only thing that is constant on the screen during gameplay is a small reminder of how to access various radial menus and Sam's battery level. Different HUD elements appear dynamically, like if you're sprinting, Sam's stamina level will be displayed in a bar that appears next to his model, keeping it easy to read and letting you focus on what's around him instead of forcing you to look down towards the corner of the screen. The same happens with his health bar, appearing when he takes damage or when you're entering combat. I love this decision, again because it lets you focus on Sam and what's around him, but also because I just think it looks good. It's a creative and simple way to present these elements without being obstructive. You'll also have notifications prompt you on the left side of the screen that give you quick and readable information in short text dumps that remain easy to read and absorb, which I don't love, but they do go by quickly and relay relevant information. One I can't justify is the constant prompting of tutorials or hints in the lower right corner. I've turned these off entirely for my other two playthroughs, but they're just a massive distraction from that side of the screen and stay visible for far too long. It is usually telling you something relevant to what's going on, like warning you about rough terrain if you're coming up on it, but again, I think it takes up way too much real estate on the screen and doesn't look very good. The use of radial menus throughout the game for various tools and equipment is fine. It's clearly designed with a controller in mind, and that's okay. I already said that I don't really enjoy navigating through these menus when you have a few things you need to do in them, with the menu only allowing one action per entry of the menu, so I don't really feel I need to go on about that. They have a consistent design and are easy to use, though a little cumbersome. Speaking of cumbersome, the menus throughout the game can feel a little overwhelming. From the cargo menu, the cufflink menu, the terminal screen, they all have sub-menus and multiple categories for you to click through and follow, which again can feel like a lot, but I think it's a fun thing to slowly get used to. I said it before, but as you progress through the game, you'll be navigating the cargo menu with ease and selecting placements quicker than you'd expect, so I don't think that the menus stay in that unwieldy territory. They just take some getting used to. They also have a cohesive design to them, which makes them nice to look at and fits with the overall presentation throughout the game otherwise. And to cap off this section on presentation, I want to talk about the audio throughout Death Stranding. It's top-notch, if you could believe it. The game uses sounds and music intently and with a lot of heart. I mentioned it in the story, but the game features a lot of moments accompanied by music, typically licensed songs, but sometimes original tracks too. These moments are meant to make you tap into specific emotions, subtly pushing you into what the game wants you to feel in that moment. I think it's great. It's a perfect use of music that all games should strive for, with or without licensed tracks. And the song selection here in Death Stranding feels perfect for the tone of the world and the themes of the story. Most of the soundtrack is composed of tracks from Low Roar, Ryan Karazija, a musical artist that Hideo Kojima took a liking to that unfortunately recently passed. I think his music makes Death Stranding supersede typical soundtracks in a game, and I honestly can't think of another game's music that has stuck with me for so long and completely changed my taste in music. The use of his songs and others complement the game in a way that other games still fail to meet for me, again matching the tone of hopelessness in a destroyed world, but the need and desire for connection to keep on living. I could play a track for you now, but you should just go listen to Low Roar's discography. Here's a few of my favorite songs that are featured in the game. The intent and care for sound extends to sound effects and audio design throughout the gameplay too. Everything has a dedicated chime or tune or something to let you know what's happening even without visual indication, which I love. It creates a sense of getting familiar with the tech that you use like Sam would in his life, slowly being able to identify what's going on just by sound. Everything sounds great and clear and unique, creating a believable world for you to exist in. And would you believe it, the quality seen throughout the rest of the game extends to its voice and motion capture performances. I'll admit, Death Stranding is kind of cheating, using a lot of Hollywood and television actors for its principal cast, like Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, and Lindsay Wagner to name a few, but those actors really sold their performances here. Plenty of games have Hollywood cameos that feel phoned in and forced, but everyone here feels like they delivered their characters with everything they could, which I highlighted a bit in the narrative section with Mama's performance from Margaret Qualley and Tommy Earl Jenkins as Die Hardman. Even smaller roles for minor characters are great. Everyone delivers their best and creates a solid lineup throughout the entire game. Like I said at the beginning of this section, the presentation of Death Stranding is nothing short of fantastic. It pushes the medium forward with technological leaps and bounds for visual presentation and indistinguishable quality for the oral side of things, especially with the use of music throughout the game. Death Stranding remains to be one of the best looking games on the market, and I'll forever remember it as one of the clearest examples of great use of audio design, voice performances, and music. Finally wrapping this up. This video is almost back to back with the last one for the longest videos on the channel, and frankly, I'm tired. I love this game, but I've been talking about it for a while now, so I'm ready to send it off with the utmost respect and to get ready for Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding is the truest expression to me of a game being about the journey and the destination. The gameplay of delivering packages with considerations for every aspect that would go into your travel carries you through a unique, in-depth journey to deliver you through a weird, human, emotional, and supernatural story in a deep and complicated world full of things for you to learn about and uncover. And yet, it's a deeply divisive game, a game that opens up a lot of conversations about what's fun and what separates a game from a glorified means of delivering a bunch of cinematics. It definitely isn't a game for everyone, and that's okay. Not everything is meant to be enjoyed by anyone. The game creates a bit of a divide between someone that wants to have a more energetic involvement in moment-to-moment gameplay and someone that wants a deeper connection with in-depth systems and mechanics for a more subdued gameplay experience. Death Stranding is one of my favorite games, and it likely always will be. It creates a unique experience through gameplay, an unparalleled level of presentation through the world and in cutscenes, and powerful emotion in its story and use of music. I've never played a game that's made me feel so deeply as Death Stranding has, especially not one that's permeated and stuck with me for so long. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far in the video, consider subscribing to see more from me in the future. I don't exactly know what's going to be next on the channel because I said it was going to be infamous and it turns out I lied. So whatever I end up uploading is what you're going to get. Definitely won't be a video on Death Stranding 2. I kind of want to keep that for myself for a little while. Maybe you'll see a video on it from me in 6 years, just like this one. Thanks again, and hope to see you on the next one.